How's it going? I wanted to share a little bit about my day. I had a spiritual experience earlier, so I want to talk about that. It gave me some insights into some things I think I want to do here. But first, I have a few tweets that came up that I wanted to share. This one says it's a little chart. I guess I'll show the chart. Um, Fully half of Harvard faculty would be at least somewhat reluctant to teach a controversial issue in class, and over two-thirds would be reluctant to discuss a controversial issue with colleagues outside the classroom. What happened to college? What happened to the universities? Look at this. Think about teaching a controversial issue in class at Harvard. How comfortable or reluctant? Very comfortable. This would be me. Somewhat comfortable. I'll even take this. I mean, universities were kind of set up for this 18% at one point. But I'll take somewhat comfortable. This over half would be reluctant. And then think about discussing the issue outside the classroom. Wow, even more people would be comfortable doing it in class than outside. Somewhat. Well, one thing I want to talk about are generations. So that's this is a new generation. My eyes are just now starting to open to that. In a lot of ways, the new Survivor is helping me see that too. This is the first Survivor I've watched. It's season 47, where I feel like I'm clearly watching a new generation of Survivor players. So yeah, that. Okay, this guy says the problem with DEI in many workplaces, especially nonprofits, is not merely the quarterly trainings that tell everyone what to think. Like in Washington State, which I went over, it's in our government. They require it to work for the state of Washington. DEI often dominates the entire culture, the way people talk, the way they evaluate talent, and the ideas that they are allowed to discuss. The same thing we just saw about the Harvard faculty. It, if I had to identify, hey Joe, um, like a general defining trend that separates my generation from this new one is this increase in safetyism. Like everything else seemed to stem from that. And all right, I'll tell you about my day. I watched that Slacker movie in the Discord, and oh my God, if you want a striking, very vivid example of art imitating life, life imitating art, watch this movie. It was made in '89, released in 1990. It was Richard Linklater's first feature film. He did like a student film before that. And it somehow predicted the entire Panelverse. It it has conspiratards, it has wacky woo people, it has pseudo intellectuals, nerds, philosophers, misfits. It hang on, I lost my thread. Shit. It'll come back. Anyway, it's people. If the Panovers got some little neighborhood in some city somewhere, like the gays used to do, they used to get the Castro or uh, the Village in New York. If we had like a little Panoverse neighborhood somewhere, it would look exactly like this movie from what 1990 24, shit, that's like almost 35 years ago. Um, it was mostly comedy. I laughed the piss out of myself watching this thing but only because I've spent over a year in the Panelverse. Like only somebody in the Panelverse could watch this movie, uh, could watch this movie and get the. It's like in jokes and humor of a group that wasn't even around when the movie is made. But now, 35 years later, this particular in group could watch this movie, and it is as though the movie were speaking to them. And so there were so many scenes where I was laughing so hard because it was right out of the panel. They even have, y'all, I'm not kidding. They have an early appearance by Jack Talcott. The early Jack Talcott, if you want to see him, he's in this movie. There's a character that's almost just like him. Um, and there's another there's like a remake of it, Slacker 2011, which is like part remake, part homage, part satire, parody, spoof, and you can see an appearance by Moose in that movie. So I can't tell you what a surreal experience it was. It's like a hole opened in space and time. And I realized that Generation X, something came about 1990. That's about the start of when we started to become adults. We grew up in the Reagan years in the 80s. And Generation X, like something opened up there and came into the world, came into culture. And if art is religion and religion is art, or art is as the religion of some people like myself, um, that was a very significant moment. Yes, I'm not kidding. So it was mostly a comedy, and like seeing this universe reflected in that. But then there were parts that like to me the center of the movie was TV Guy. It got very a little dark and disturbing around TV Guy because you come to the realization that we are TV Guy, and TV Guy is us, and TV Guy's world is the world we are now living in. And that's when I'm like, oh shit, this is way more than just a comedy. This is getting deep and scary. And then it like moves out of that and the movie progresses and proceeds. And then it becomes very meta. It's like a movie about movies, about people having conversations that are captured on the theme of things being captured on video and film and TV and squares runs throughout, and it kind of like starts to climax at the end. It Mine certainly has been a tragic comedy. Technically, according to strict literary standards, you don't know if it's a comedy until it ends. Like, does it end happy, or does it end do you end fallen, or do you end in peace with a happy life achieved? Do you have a happy ending or a tragic ending? Because that's what determines the genre of your life, if somebody were to capture it in literary form. But I digress. Back to the Panelverse. And then I remember watching. So this movie came out in 1990. I moved to Austin in 1991, just about the time that Nirvana's Nevermind was released and the grunge explosion started, which is actually the culmination of my little section of Gen X, which I would start about 1987, at least musically and culturally, artistically. MTV's 120 Minutes started in 1986, so you could even start it there. Anyway, I watched the movie in the Dolby Theater, which was the theater on the college campus that they showed all the cool indie films, and it had run there for over a year, and it was like a central cornerstone of Austin culture at that time. Like everybody had seen Slacker and knows Slacker. And so you're sitting in the theater watching a movie that was filmed and set in the neighborhood right outside of the theater about life in the town that you are now living in. And so you're watching a piece of art about the life that the art is actually embedded in, and then you go outside of the theater and you start interacting with the life, and it's almost identical to this piece of art that you just watched. And 35 years later, the Panelverse is doing the same thing. And so I'm not surprised I ended up here. I've been training for this Panelverse my whole life. And I realized that there's certain values from Generation X. Yes, it can. It's especially I guess sadomasochistic tragedy. Certainly, we see it on here on this panel um, with some of the trolling. There's certain things that oh, and this is the other epiphany that blew my mind, that made it like more than just a comedy, or it was good to watch a movie and remember what it's like to escape into a world. And believe it or not, I was escaping the Panelverse into a world that was even more like the Panelverse. But it still felt like an escape. It took me back to the days where you could put in a movie and enter a world other than the one you currently existed in and just get away for 2 hours and lose yourself in other people's stories, other settings. And it was like escaping from the Panelverse into a movie that reflected the Panelverse. And so movies were also a big part of Gen X, especially that's really like when the indie scene started. And I would say Slacker was one of the movies that kicked it off. It inspired Clerks and that genre of movie. So I think what I'm going to start doing is like maybe daily, maybe every few days. I think I'm just going to start with the 90s, and I'm just going to go through some Gen X movies and just kind of keep that ethos going. And it's kind of like I don't know, it's Bible stories, it's campfire tales. I think it's important to have a centralized set of stories that we gather around. And I think churches provide that for people. I think schools can provide that for people. I think subcultures, music, art. And so I think I'm just going to do some of the ones from the 90s that I remember watching that were important. They certainly defined the 90s were kind of where you could see the shift in art, film, music of the new generational ethos compared to the late 80s. The late 80s kind of laid the groundwork for it, at least definitely musically. But it started to show up in films about 1990. And remember, that was post Batman. I think that came out in '89, the Michael Keaton one. And so the world's a little darker, a little grittier, a little more realistic. And you get things like Slacker. That's Twin Peaks, which Twin Peaks 1990 changed television. The movies that we're watching now on Showtime, HBO, those have more in common and resemble a show like Twin Peaks, which was on ABC primetime, than they do movies that came before Twin Peaks. Like that kind of style of, I think Twin Peaks began modern television. And movies like Slacker kind of began modern, or at our time, Gen X movies. And then you had the noir movies like Wild at Heart, which is another David Lynch movie with Laura Dern and Nicolas Cage, and The Grifters with John Cusack. So I think I'm going to show some of those, and I would love to show Slacker again too. Like I'm just after today, I really need to give this movie another watch. There's way more going on in there. Either art is stranger than we thought, like more profound than we realized, or Richard Linklater's way more of a genius than I realized because he prophesied our entire future. So this is the other thing that blew my mind about Slacker, that made it sharper than just a fun getaway movie. Wokeness is a Gen X thing. We started that shit. Because the other thing that happened in the 90s, about the same time as all of this, was third wave feminism. That is Gen X feminism. The Riot Girls up here in Olympia, Washington at Evergreen State College, surprise, surprise. Um, you see some of that feminism in this movie start. I remember it in my life in certain circles with girls that had gone off to college and they would like socialize with us at bars and stuff and they would start talking this real um well actually if you think about it it impacts this is actually problematic because of this group and I had never heard talk like that before. It started to trickle in. um this next generation, as much as I complain about them, they are our children. They are a child of that safetyism that started probably as a reaction to us growing up the way we did. The last outdoor generation, the last generation of risk. And I think Gen X needs to own the wokeness. They need to own the despair. Like whatever's going on with this new generation, they blame it on the boomers, which is great. Let them blame it on the boomers. We are the cool older brother, the cool uncle, the gunkle, if you will, the gay uncle of this next generation. We're so I'm going to try to use Generation X. It also is the satanic generation. It gave us Satanism, the original Satanism, and rock. We were the rock generation. So I feel like I'm on a spiritual mission to keep that like available for the next generation in a positive way, and they can kind of come to our history. It's like a living history, a living museum from an actual Gen Xer that was there, and it's a way for Gen X to keep our identity going because I think that can be a legitimate cultural identity, and to kind of help pass it on to the new next generation in healthy ways. In a way, I'm kind of the old guard that I fought against when I was a little leather boy or trying to be in the leather community. And I thought all the old guard leather traditions were stupid and the new generation has its own way of doing things and don't tell us what to do, etc. And now I'm trying to make sure our traditions get passed on to the new generation in a positive, healthy way instead of this distorted way that we in a way help to foster. All right, I guess that is my little topic for the night. I will put the link and get the panel started. And so I started watching the Slacker 2011 too. I think I'm gonna do a marathon where I do Slacker because if you watch the remake right after the first one, then you get they reflect each other, and that's another example. You have Slacker, then you have this remake that's kind of a Slacker imitating Slacker, and then you have the Panoverse, which is real life unwittingly imitating all of it. All right, let me check on some comments here. Got warped. I remember that movie. Oh, it was so bad. Oh, God. I don't think any movie made me more embarrassed to be from the 80s than Howard the Duck. Okay, I don't know who this Chews on Straws is. Okay. Oh, they're all clamoring to get up. Welcome.
Let us in. Let us in.
Howdy doodly doo.
Busker, yeah, Teresa Taylor. She was fantastic. She plays
Yeah,
the little
dude.
girl, the little like hippie girl with the shade. She's the icon on the cover of the
Yes, that's
video, the
right.
poster, the
Exactly,
DVD. Yeah,
dude.
she's from Butthole
Exactly.
Surfers.
At first, when I saw that, I thought that was just a skinny guy. When I saw the cover of that movie, because I never saw it in the theater, I just saw the cover in the Blockbuster, and I never rented that. But my other friend from California, um, well, my I have a friend from California who was talking about that movie just recently.
Oh,
Yeah,
maybe there's a convergence
he,
happening. Like
he's
a hole really is opening up.
he's your generation of that Gen X, totally. Like my friend over in Cali.
Cause Busker, that video you showed us the other day, the punk show,
Oh
that captured it perfectly. Like that really took me back. I think that might even be what instigated all of this.
yeah.
Like the power of still being able to keep that alive, and it's still like the magic is still there for me.
Yeah, me too in a way. I mean, it's like I don't know, like the friends have all become adults, like that are so far left leaning. I just can't. I'm enemies with them at this point. It's so
Yeah, I
so bad.
lost a lot of friends too.
A whole
And I
shit.
was a lefty back then too. Like my whole Gen X was being a left. That's what I'm saying. Like this came out of our
Yeah,
the
right.
counter Gen X counterculture was a leftist counterculture.
Now I
This
see what
came
you're.
out of that, but it came out of that feminist side, which we didn't have a lot of where I was from. Mostly in the cities, at the universities, but I was away from that world at the time. And so most of my Gen X came through indie films and rock, like the rock music at the time, and MTV, like alternative MTV. It wasn't a lot of that feminism.
Right.
But that's what was happening in the cities and the universities, and that just kept growing and growing and growing until the dam broke in 2020 and at Evergreen.
Man, yeah, like 2020. It's not been a good decade so far for me. I don't, in my mind, I guess.
When it was like 2019 and 2020 was approaching, I'm like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if it was like another like roaring 20s decade where people kind of dressed fancy and acted cool,
This is
and
a
then
different.
almost immediately is like quarantine, lockdowns. It's the first like plague we've had in a century, and it's like, oh shit, this is not how I thought it would go.
Well, there's also a parallel because there was a plague back then, right? There was the what was that? Uh,
The
Um,
Spanish flu, the Spanish
yeah,
flu.
Spanish flu. That's right. And people were wearing masks. They were wearing diapers over their face again. Like I mean, back then too. I got pictures of that. I got that on my computer somewhere.
You know, if COVID had gotten more boomers, Jeff, Gen X would be ruling right now.
Yeah.
What's let's see. What's going on with Mr. B? Mr. B, you don't have anything to apologize for.
Yeah, I'm. He seems to feel bad.
No. I think, and Mr. B is our subtle troll. Don't forget,
I didn't feel attacked, you know, but
he
the
is
only thing
the
that,
most subtle of subtle.
and I explained it in the chat, that I thought was an issue is that he and Shameless, they were kind of, you know, both doing this at the same time, is that, and they weren't like doing this like with malice, but like, you know, I was talking about investment methods, and they're like, but rich people get lower interest loans. What about that? And I'm like, well, here's why it happens, but what are we gonna do in the meantime, right?
Just get rich if that's what you want. If it's important
That's
enough for you to get low interest loans, just get rich. Look at Joe getting into the panel drama already.
uh
And I told him, like, you don't have to
Live.
apologize to me, and also I don't even believe in apologies, so don't worry about it. Like, I
Yeah, I
don't
don't
think
either.
anyone ever owes me an apology for anything. If I think
I'm the
you owe
same
me
way.
something, you really fucked up and you have something to fix. Like, you broke my arm and you owe me, right? But if you said something, if you put your foot in your mouth, like, I never think about that stuff. Some people think I like, oh, he must be mad. No, I'm not.
Subtle, subtle.
Not that I
So
think Mr.
what's
B was like that hung up over it, but some people can be.
yeah, I would not get too caught up over it. Believe me. How was your things today? Any
Oh, they were pretty
updates?
good. No dates. So I went to the board game thing, and like that's mostly like older folks because it's like, you know, in the afternoon, like in the middle of the afternoon. So not very many people my age tend to show up to those. But some do. I think I told you before about that chick who had mentioned she wanted to go to the planetarium. So she
yeah.
sometimes goes to those things, but
That
You
sounds
had,
promising. I don't remember her, but
I had a
That would
girlfriend
excite
Oh,
me.
yeah.
to go to a planetarium once, and we just never went.
The planetariums are cool.
Yeah, she's probably like close to my age.
Well,
Jeff, did you cut out?
she wanted
Or
The
is it
what?
me?
to go. It was in the '90s. I just didn't care for that.
Do what,
I would
Joe?
have liked it. As in the '80s, I would have loved it. But a
I think I
planetarium.
cut out for a moment. I was saying, yeah, there's a girl who's like about my age who's been to a few of those. Like, they're over in Durham, and Durham has multiple library locations, and they have their board game events staggered throughout the month. So there's usually about one per week at one of the libraries, basically. And
Is
so
this the
she'll,
same pronoun place?
so the pronoun place is one of them. So the one I
Pronoun
went to
place.
on Monday was the pronoun place, or the place where the pronoun confrontation happened, I guess you could say.
Pronoun place. What? Wait a minute. What
Uh,
is this?
They,
Somebody, it
Pronoun?
was like somebody who is a woman, while I was explaining something in a game, like because I knew the rules but they didn't. We were
Yeah,
playing,
yeah.
and I was explaining like a turn that had happened and all the different moves, and I was like, so he did that, and so then she did this, and as I'm going, and she goes, I use they them pronouns, and I'm like, okay,
Oh
right.
shit!
So it's just one
That
of
is
those things,
bad.
right? Yeah.
That doesn't count, you damn pronoun. Ah
Yeah. So, um,
shit.
um, yeah, that was one of them, and but there are other locations, and not all. Some people only go to the one that's near them, and a couple people go to more than one. And this one girl, there's the one girl who goes there, but I don't know how viable of a candidate she is. She's very pretty, but um, how do I put this? She
she's
is
body
like one of
positive.
those. She's like one of those gothic kids that never grew out of that, so she still wears like all black dresses
Because it's a
with
legitimate
boots.
subculture. You don't grow out of
Yeah,
those.
but part of me wonders like if that's just how she is, or if like she she has like I don't know. I'm still figuring her out. She might also be autistic too. That might be some of it. Um,
Do you not like gothic people?
no, I actually think it's fine, but like I noticed that gothic people just tend to be into things that would not match well with me.
Oh, okay.
They're more likely, like to drink or smoke and just things like that, right? Not necessarily super wild stuff, but like I'm very vanilla. Like I don't do that stuff. So
Yeah,
um
I'm kind of vanilla gothic myself. So, I mean,
yeah.
don't assume that she's not vanilla just because of the goth. Although you're right, I think that there is a higher likelihood she would not be.
Yeah,
So
so
goth
we'll see.
meaning, I'm sorry to interrupt. The gothic meaning she's like into like Marilyn Manson or shit like that.
Something like that subculture. It's like she's wearing all
Yeah,
black, she has tattoos and piercings, like kind of
but I gotta
thing.
say, I like the early Australian goth Nick Cave. I like
The birthday party,
yeah,
Yeah,
birthday.
and then what was it? Oh yeah, then after the board game thing, I went to that this
the
fundraiser that
fundraiser.
the club is having, and some of the other folks actually showed up. I didn't know if other people go to that because it was just a fundraiser rather than like a normal meeting. And I just I chatted with folks for a bit. And nothing really spectacular to mention there. Um, and then I came back, and no, that was my day.
Hmm. And here you are.
One thing I did think about is actually I should tell you about this too. So I think I had mentioned to you that while I was on your stream at the coffee shop, it's might have been I think the first time we did it. Um, yeah, because I posted it in Discord. Actually, I
That
mentioned that
girl
this
had
happened.
talked.
Yeah, this girl came up to me. This was like a week and a half ago. It was last Tuesday. And she was like, she was fascinated by what she overheard me discussing with you. And she obviously couldn't hear your half of it, but she was obviously able to work out a lot from what I said. And, because we were talking about some of the current events, and then I was talking about stocks and stuff. And, so
There
she came up to me and
you go.
asked me to like say more about it. And she said she was interested in learning more about stocks and investing and finances because it's something that interests her, and she wants to know more about it, but she doesn't really know where to go with it. So
Wow,
we
man,
exchanged information.
You could guide her.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I offered to
Start
exchange
out as
information so that we
start
could.
out friendly and like just see what she's all about. Like that's a
Well, wait,
good.
let him finish. I think he's getting there.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
sorry, sorry.
yeah. And then so we did that. Then I just sort of wait for her to text me, and she texted me like later that day, and she was like, she kind of did like a similar thing as Mr. B. Oh, sorry that I approached you like that, but kind of thing. And
Control
I was
back.
like, I'm like, you don't have to worry about it. I'm in public. It's what happens when you put yourself in public. People can approach you. Um, and then did not hear from her for a week. And my thought process was, um, she knows what she wants. I'll just wait for her to follow up. Um, and then I was speaking to a therapist yesterday, and she said, maybe like you need to try like
Stalking her.
getting people to like want to follow up with you.
How do you
Um,
control that?
so she suggested that um, if I did follow up, like first she asked like, what is something that I thought about her, and I said, well, um, one, I probably looked like I wasn't too pleased to see her because during the course of our talk on the stream, I had been drinking a lot of coffee refills, and so I really had to go to the bathroom. So she doesn't know that, and so like I probably look. I don't think I have a welcoming look on my face as she's coming up to me, and this is probably why she was feeling apologetic, because I'm waiting for the conversation to end so I can go pee, right? And um and so but actually, like, I was kind of like impressed because normally people are too intimidated by the topic of investing in finance to even ask about it. So that she felt comfortable enough to like not only like especially look into it, but to like approach me, a stranger in public, about it. I thought I was a little impressed by it because a lot of people won't do that.
Yeah.
And then she was like, "Well, maybe you can tell her that." And so I did text her yesterday about that, and then she followed up again. And so we talked a bit more about what she wants to like figure out. Um, and we're gonna figure out a time to like meet and like I guess teach her some basics in the coming week.
Wait, say that last part.
I said we texted a little bit more, just kind of figured like a couple other things out, and then but we're probably gonna work out a time in the coming week for us to meet in person and um like teach her some basics about stocks and investing. Um, so that's where we are. But like she had not texted me again after the day that we talked until I texted her yesterday. So like a little over a week passed. And I'm just
Okay.
gonna
And
wait.
so you feel like it's okay? Everything seems normal so far?
Yeah. I think she probably was like maybe self-conscious of the fact that um I may have seemed like I was unhappy to be interrupted as I was about to make my way out, and um that even though I exchanged numbers, maybe she didn't really feel like she was welcome to ask. So I simply um went with the guidance of my therapist, and tried following up and just letting her know things are okay. You can follow up again.
Nathan, what does this mean for society? If we're that different,
It
how do
means
we?
men have to be social geniuses. That's what it means.
Right. Like so that's my next question is what about those of us that can't or won't? I don't change the way I talk to anybody because I'm expressing myself and who I am doesn't change in relation to who I'm talking to.
Now, Nathan, if I'm correct, you're saying this in a very open-ended way. So, even though I am just sticking to like a shared interest with this, um, you're still saying like the way I approach a topic like stocks and investing. goal simply being to educate another person. To keep that in mind about the way I talk to her about it. Is that correct?
I think you should just be yourself.
Well, I'm trying to just make sure I understand what
Oh,
Nathan is saying. So we'll see what he types. I mean, you're not wrong, Jeff. Like, I'm not
not
evil.
usually.
So what's wrong with me being myself? Let me explain.
Nathan, you
Okay.
want to here? Take the link. He's not gonna come up. Hey, Colt, what's up?
Let me explain. Yeah. Well, when it's about how women think, an explanation is always needed, right? And I did talk about that with the therapist as well. It's like communication with men is always just not always, but very reliably much easier.
I
Right? Like if
find
you
it.
had to actually bet money about, which conversation will go better, you just bet the man every time, you'll eventually become a rich man.
I
There'll be
don't, Colt. That's part of my problem, though. They expected it, and I don't do it. I don't know why you would. That doesn't seem like a value of individualism. Hey, Jeff. Like I treat each person as an individual. I don't treat them by whatever group they're in.
Mhm.
Although I'm starting, like women are starting to train me to do that, but I feel like I don't feel like it's a good thing every time I do it. I feel like I'm regressing to an inferior
You
approach.
know what? When you say train, women starting to train you, I've seen like a lot of things and like videos on YouTube and TikTok about the um
Oh, I
whether
think we have. Hang on.
Nathan
I mean, go ahead, but
whether
do I?
men and women should like split assets 50-50, and it's often in the context of like if the man is like the sole breadwinner, right? Like if he made almost all the money, if he started a business on his own and made millions, and then there's a divorce, should the wife get half of all that he built up? And the women in these conversations are often saying things like yes, and they're like, well, why if she didn't contribute to that? And she's like, well, she put years
Nathan,
of
is that
work
you?
Yeah,
into the
it's.
marriage.
Can
Okay.
you hear me?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they act like putting years of work into the marriage means they're entitled to half of whatever. And then I think like, what is work in a marriage? Like putting work into a relationship for a woman. And I think for a lot of them, it's just training their man to be the way they want them to be.
So,
That's what I was thinking. Like women, I was thinking two things about men. They can either get tamed and civilized by women, and some men respond to that, or they can get like developed by other men. Like other men can help them develop into men, or they can get
Especially if
tamed
we're
or
talking about
civilized by
like
women.
splitting the assets of a wealthy man, like a very successful man who makes millions. That says to me, like the work she's putting in is probably not cleaning the house or cooking the food, because if he's a millionaire, they're paying someone to do that shit, or they're eating out a lot, right? So like, what is the work she's putting into it, right? It makes more sense for a woman to claim 50-50 of like a much poorer or middle class household when there's much less on the table. And that's of course going to be even harder on the man because he has less than. Um, so it was an interesting thing to think about.
I
hey,
know
so
from being with Mike, we operated as a unit. Like we were so kind of one being, our thoughts, our feeling, and so everything just felt like ours together. Like we didn't worry about who was what subjectively. And so as part of a relationship, I think some people can develop that psychological sense of equal participation or equal
Mhm.
collaboration.
hey, can you guys hear me just fine?
Yeah. Hey, Nathan, what's up?
Yeah, I
Welcome.
just set up my mic here. So earlier I just kind of drove by and said the comment, and it's more of a general advice I give other men. They've asked me before in the past, like, what do I do to get so many dates with other women? This is when I was dating. Things are probably a lot different now since I've been married for a while, and um, I'm out of the market, so to speak.
How many
But
years?
one of the, yeah, at least 8 years. So
Okay.
one of the things that I realized in my mid-20s was I was catching myself talking to women the way I was talking to men. And I'm not saying that one should contort themselves or be a different person around women. That's what I'm suggesting. But if you're really interested in a woman, I think being very forward about that early on is probably your best bet, because it's not that you're trying to be a creep or gross or anything like that. But if they know that you know, and so on and so forth, that you think they're attractive or whatever, and you want to get to know them more, well, you're probably saving everyone time if you go that route rather than through routes of like shared interest. The shared interest stuff is great, don't get me wrong, but there are the things that people look at like, am I attracted to this person physically? Like that's a huge one that we kind of discount. But I don't think it's a superficial thing necessarily. It shouldn't be that all out. I mean, as you age with your partner, for instance, I don't look as good as I did the first day that I met my wife, right? And she doesn't either, but we're good for each other. So all those physical things, they do disappear over time. We did have more than one thing to talk about. And a lot of it came from the sort of trivial, safe kind of topics about, hey, I think you're kind of cute. Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I think you're really nice. You're good with animals, whatever the case may be. The reason that we have those kind of conversations, so you kind of vet out the person in a sort of non-committal type way. But if you're interested in this woman, I didn't catch the whole thing.
Oh no, I'm not.
Oh, okay. I just caught the end of it. I was like, well, why is he? Sounds like he's interested
Hey,
in some
Daniel
woman,
Berry.
so.
You're not interested in her?
No, I'm not.
Well, I'm confused. I was approaching this as a potential, like, romance thing.
At no point did I ever say that this was a romantic interest.
Yeah,
of mine.
just give up. If you're confusing even me, just give up. Stay.
Yeah, so
You're a hermit. Just stay a hermit.
I simply recounted what happened, and then it's just somebody to share insights about investing and
But we
such.
have been talking about dating and Tinder, and so there was
We
like
have.
a assumed context there, I guess.
Yeah,
my
So every
apologies
time a
for reading
female
into
comes
that.
up, we evaluate
I
her.
took advantage of my Spurg friend. I put him in a gotcha. I knew what I was doing. I'm such a bad person.
Did you? Are you serious? You're
No,
that
I'm
good?
kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh,
I'm
believe
I'm
you.
hamming it up for stream.
Yeah, Joe. If you really want to get a woman, though, anyways, go get yourself a cheap ring, put it on, and just go about your life. It's the halo effect of the ring. Oh, you already have the social. You already have the social capital to get someone. You'll all of a sudden be more interested to people.
Colt, the therapist suggested this because it's just an opportunity to work on something where I can have potentially positive feedback with another person. There isn't a particular goal in it, right?
Did your therapist approach it in it with a romantic perspective or potentially
No.
too? No.
No.
Just start off as friends and see how it goes, man.
But do women start off
Never
as?
works.
Is there a starting off as friends with women?
No, they decide within the first couple interactions that they're going to sleep with you, if that's the route you're going, or if they're physically attracted.
Or if they're not interested in you and they later become interested in you, they will retcon it to be like, "Oh, our first date was like 5 years ago when I didn't like you." Right? They will improve the
Well,
story
y'all seem
so
to
that
have
it's
women
always
figured
romantic.
I don't know.
Well, see, my I exaggerate a bit, but when I say my first girlfriend, I mean it's my only girlfriend that I've had. But we had a similar thing. We were hanging out. I did not ask her on a date. Wasn't trying to date her, but she maintains that the first time we hung out was our first date because that's how she wanted it to be. We didn't talk about dating until after we hung out maybe 2 or 3 times. And even then, it was like her that really broached it.
What I did is I confronted my now wife while she was in the shower and asked if we're an item or not. I mean, she had nowhere else to hide. She had to answer whether or not we're a couple. So she told the story to her friends, and they all laughed. But
Did she
and like,
feel like she could say no in
of
that
course she
situation?
could, but she wanted to say yes. But we were playing a little like, okay, it's our third date kind of thing, and it's over at her house waiting for her to get ready.
Wow,
And
that's intense.
I was like, I just confronted her. I'm like, hey, can I come in for a second? She's like, I'm in the shower. I'm like, yeah. Are you covered? Are you in the shower? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I got to ask you something. So I go in there and like, so we're official, right? And she's like, you choose to ask me in here. And she started yelling and
See?
laughing. And it was good because when she came out with her, we had these big grins on our faces because I punked her basically. But she later told her friends that she thought it was kind of, cool that I did that.
No, I'm sorry. I just had this picture. If you were like taking a dump when she was taking a shower,
Are we an
and you
item?
said, "Are we official?" As you're taking a dump.
If you,
Well, I think you are
Is
at
that
that
Humble
point, whether
song?
she
Yeah.
Sorry,
says
that's
no or
like
not.
something I would have
You know
done.
what's funny? What's funny about that though is like with my ex-girlfriend, it's not like I was even like counting the dates because like the way we did it is we were hanging out and then she told me that she liked me, so we had a conversation about it, and then at the end of that conversation, we basically just agreed to go steady right at that moment, and we didn't do like, oh, we're on the third date. That was not the
It
progression.
was like mutual, like you'll
Yeah,
just
like
kind of
I
both
had a very
realize.
direct conversation with her about it. I just said because I was just thinking, okay, let's come out of this with something, right? And she liked me, and I thought, she's cute. And to me, it was just sort of like I just thought, why not just like having the girlfriend is trying, right? Like that's trying before, like trying the person out, you could say, before you actually fucking marry them, right? And there's trying out to try someone out, right? Like before you're actually a couple. I just didn't really feel like the need to do that. So that's how I approached the conversation. Like, because I just sort of thought if we don't work out, we'll break up. Easy.
Yeah, but
Actually, not
like
easy.
it depends on it. You understand stocks. It depends on the event. There's a certain amount of investment that you.
Yeah. So I mean, turns out breaking up was not easy. It was brutal, emotionally brutal for her, even though it needed to happen. I definitely broke her heart.
Psychopaths.
Yeah.
Nathan, if she had decided y'all were not so it sounds like she had wanted to be an item too. But if she had decided no, she would not have come out with a grin, right? She would have come out all outraged that you were in the bathroom and get out of here.
Yeah,
What are
yeah.
you
But
doing in here?
it was like a false, not say false choice. We were at that playful stage in our relationship where we were kind of still exploring each other, trying to figure each other out, understand each other's sense of humor, that kind of thing. And I knew that she wanted to be an official couple, right? So I wasn't asking her for her permission. I was looking for confirmation for something I already knew.
Oh, okay. So you
So
were
to
pretty.
me, like I read this, I wasn't like, oh God, I'm nervous. I gotta go in there and make sure we're a couple because we're about to go to our third date. It was like, no, I'm jiving really well with this person. I'm feeling it. She's feeling it. She can't stop texting me. We're with each other 24/7. Yeah, we're a couple. I just did it to kind of be kind of funny about it. So it worked, thankfully.
Well, yeah, you read that one right. Thank God.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the reading isn't a rational reading. It's like, how do I put it? Some of it's instinct. Some of it comes through, a lot of experience and stuff like that. I mean, I've dated over the course of my lifetime over 50 women. So like I have an idea of what works and what doesn't. And a lot of it was just a lot of trial and error to the point where I was no longer afraid to kind of speak my mind. When I was younger, I used to kind of contort myself a little bit to sort of like appeal to someone's sentiment.
Oh,
But then
I
I
hate
realized,
when they do that.
well, I was doing that as a young person, right? Because I didn't know
It's
any
so
better.
misleading.
Well, it happened mutually a lot of times too. People contort themselves, you contort yourselves. So the best policy for me was like, I need to limit what I'm saying, period, early, as far as I have a wealth of things I could talk to them about. There's no reason to spill my heart out to someone right away. I could be a little self-reserved. Let me see if they want to talk about themselves. So I'll ask them questions about themselves. And generally, like I can go when I was younger, I can go a couple dates and just for the sake of dating. And if it doesn't work out, I'm like, okay, that's fine. We'll just move our separate ways, and that was it. it was always
Yeah,
mutual. It was never like a catastrophe every time
I think
I
in
went through a
general,
bad thing.
getting the other person to talk helps.
That's easy. Like I'm
Yeah.
so curious about the other. I'd almost rather listen to them than
But it did
talk.
not work for my ex-girlfriend. She was almost a mute. I mean, Christ.
Ugh.
But
Yeah, it is hard with people like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
I
some
don't
people
think
don't
I'd
like
do
to feel
well.
like they're being questioned or
Mhm.
judged or something with questions. So it's like
Well-
a give and take. Sometimes you gotta give. Sometimes you gotta take. It's a dance, right? And the thing is, I can't speak for male on male intimacy stuff, but male and female intimacy seems to be not 50-50 when it comes to these kind of things in the dating market. As Joe was saying, you have to be kind of like a social like genius or something, or just get lucky, right? Sometimes.
I like what Cult of Culture said. You just highlighted it. Can you highlight it again? Yeah. People tell you everything you know about them. You just really have to listen.
And you watch what they do. That's the other thing.
And culture might mean that. Like when he says tell, he might mean like show with that as well. Because even if they don't come out and say things, there are some things that are just um deducible by what they said, right?
Infer.
Um
Yeah, the woman that I dated before I eventually started dating my now wife, it was a good 4 month relationship, and she was very attractive, all this kind of stuff. And she was showing me something about herself where I wasn't quite comfortable with her because I always felt there was some other thing going on, some sort of pretense. Well, it turned out that she was bragging on Twitter that she was using me for free meals. So I cut her off completely, right? Because I like to pay and stuff,
That's
and
fucking
cut her off
crazy.
completely. And at first, she wasn't trying to contact me, and then I started getting the voicemails on my phone about her getting really pissed off at me, like, you know what? You're a fucking prick. This kind of. So I have all these. I turn them into a ringtone. I use it as a battle anthem for a while. And I used to have my guy friends listen to these things. I'm like, see, this is what can happen. Just because she's hot doesn't mean that she's stable. Okay, she's
Right.
crazy. She was crazy because there's this crazy hot.
I could
matrix.
just the whole you know what? I can just start to hear like the crazy stuff she's coming up with.
Oh yeah, she was calling me in the middle of the night, leaving voicemails.
Oh,
Even when I
yeah.
was dating my now wife, and she would leave like these 2-minute voicemails where she's
Shit.
completely drunk with her friends, talking about how much of a prick I was because all it took was like one major infraction like that. I'm like, oh no, I'm not a free meal ticket, right? Like I like paying and stuff, but I'm not that.
So this is an ex, like
yeah.
before your wife. So like
Yeah.
you should just be
Oh.
like, you're a fucking slit. Fucking
Oh no,
whatever.
I have an ongoing joke with her. Her name was Amber, right? So whenever an Amber alert goes off on my phone, I always tell everyone around me, I'm like, oh, my ex is out again. She's out there. She's out. They're alerting us.
Look out for Amber.
Yeah.
Fuck. But Mike, you think there's a correlation? Go for somebody mediocre,
She was like,
average with a good personality.
hey, doing number game like hotness scale stuff, but she was probably she was like a low 9, right?
Wow.
So,
Nice.
but with that comes a lot of. I'm being stereotypical, of course. And
Oh no
being
shit.
sure. They're a little. Sometimes they could be a little unhinged because they're used to getting a certain type of attention from everyone, and they don't get what they want. Often, it's because they also have a lot of low self-esteem because everyone's so fake around them all the time, giving everything they want. So when they don't get what they want, they have like certain dissonance. Right. This goes for pretty guys too. I'm assuming. And they don't get it their way too. So
that's the human condition, I guess, or one of the human conditions.
Colt, the
Yeah, I think
next
people get thrown
generation's
off.
doing so much better, aren't they?
I think people get thrown off when they're met with a social interaction that disrupts whatever their paradigm is. So,
Take it
like
from
for me, for example, if we go back to the chick from the coffee shop who wants to talk stocks with me, it wasn't just the fact that I had to go to the bathroom that maybe I didn't seem like I was happy. But I also like I did not have a pleased reaction because generally speaking, I don't get approached by people, certainly not by women. And if I am approached by people, usually they are begging for money or they're trying to convert me to their religion. And like not really any exceptions in the 14 years of my adult life. So it's like I am just sort of like almost like I have to go to the bathroom and I'm probably kind of like a deer in headlights thing, like what is happening in front of me right now? I have no idea what to expect, right? Um
So
and
how many Jesus freaks have you met?
well, if they do approach me, it's usually like if I'm outside, like on a sidewalk or in a parking lot. But like, and it's not like it's really that common, but it's just sort of like if there's somebody coming up to me, it's not like, wow, I heard what you're talking about. That's interesting. You sound like an interesting person. Maybe you could teach me things. Like, he fucking does that, right?
Yeah,
And so
right,
that's
right.
like, I'm not expecting that, right?
Yeah,
Um,
that's a red flag right there.
right. And so like, well, I don't know if that's a red flag, but like,
Well, it's a
that's
yellow.
clearly what, huh?
It's a yield flag. Like be uh venture with care.
Why venture with care?
Well, I mean, like, well, wait a minute. What were we talking about again? Jesus, I'm lost.
Somebody came up to me. They overheard what I was discussing on stream with Jeff when I was at a coffee shop once. We were mostly talking about things like current events and stocks and investing.
Yeah,
And she
yeah,
was
I
interested
remember that.
particularly in the stocks part. So she came up to me and she asked me
Yeah,
more about
yeah,
what we were
yeah.
discussing.
I know.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
what?
love surprises.
Yeah, I just might have gotten lost. My brain's a little scrambled right now.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
Colt. So what I was saying is that I think everyone gets thrown off when they're confronted with a social interaction that defies their paradigm. So in my case, is I'm not used to people coming up to me, and in the rare event that it does happen, they're trying to they're evangelists trying to like doing missionary work,
That's what I was at.
or
that's the whole
they're
panel here,
beggars.
is what you just
I was
described.
talking about you. So you run into these evangelists all the time.
Mhm.
You're saying,
I'm
right?
not
So
saying I do it all the time, but I'm saying
I
in
mean, like,
over the years of my adult life, if I could
yeah,
tally up the time
yeah,
people
yeah,
have approached
yeah.
me, those have been the two instances.
And they're the most. A lot of them are the fakest fuckers out there, and they want to sell you on Jesus.
Yeah. So like
I've
again,
known
I'm
a lot of them. I've known a lot of them.
I got
I'm
9 years in Vegas under my belt.
yeah.
I
So
know
like
what to do with that
I really don't
stuff.
know what to expect because one,
Hmm.
she's not dressed like a missionary, and two, she doesn't look like a beggar. So like I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, who is this person that just suddenly came up to me? I had, I'm not expecting anything good, so I'm kind of like just waiting to see what she has to say. And maybe she interpreted that as me being annoyed that she approached me, right? But that was like me. And so like what Jeff was saying about like attractive people get a lot of positive attention. They get people doing what they want a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When they don't get that, which is like deep down they know that they're not entitled to just constant output of goodwill from the world, right? If it doesn't happen one time, they're okay. But they have a habit of expecting it, and so when that's disrupted, they go, "What?"
Well, the ugly truth will hit when they get old.
If you ever want to see what like someone's gonna look like when they're much older, if you get a picture of their mom or dad, no, for real. Like if they're usually
Yeah, combine
if
them. Yep.
if you look at like their parents and their parents are, you know, fairly attractive for their ages, that means the person you're looking at probably will be too. Except for sometimes you get like these mutants, right? You ever look at like Hollywood people where like this very attractive person, right? But you look at their parents, they kind of look like just like me and you, with the exception of mutants. For the
Yeah.
most
Right.
part, you can look at parents at their if you're interested in a girl, if you know what her mom looks like, you'll have an idea what she's gonna look like when she's older too. Generally, for real, like genetics.
Yep.
So if you date a girl and her mom is hot, it's a red flag.
Mr. P, come up if you want.
Yeah, you're right, man. Like I'm thinking back to my 20s and thinking about people on MySpace, Facebook, and just old friends of mine. Just wondering. I kind of knew what they would look like, and when I looked at their mother, sure enough, they're turning out to look like them in their 40s now.
I mean, it takes time. You know, like we
Yeah,
ate the
it's time,
fastest we
for sure.
aged
like
were 2
20
periods.
some years, and then they really don't. Well, some hold their looks, but some kind of take a dive.
So at puberty, we aged the fastest, and then the second period in which we aged the fastest is the 44.
Right?
Really?
Yeah, there's some weird. So there's
I
some
must
weird
be, I must be
genetic
one of
stuff
those
about
mutants.
this. Yeah, it's some biology thing. Anyways, like, so those periods where people physically age the quickest, right? The puberty one makes sense, right? Because your body is transforming. But in
Mhm.
adulthood, 44 roughly is when people really age, where they can really put on the years on their face and stuff like that.
And then women
Jeff,
start to be like, "Ugh."
how old are you, Joe? If you don't mind me asking.
32.
Guess, because that's always the game here.
32.
People can't seem to figure it out. So
Are you 32?
Nathan, quit guessing
Yes.
correctly.
All right, now,
That-
now, Jeff, man,
Oh, wait.
you held your looks very. I'm not saying that to hit on you, dude, but your looks held up all this time. Like if 44, it hasn't touched you, man. I'm
No,
sorry.
I didn't. I don't see much different than I was at 38.
Exactly, right? Well, I mean, like your appearance, but like, yeah, I mean, inside, yeah, whatever.
Oh yeah, Cole. I know what you mean here. That's when I talk about the canoe like capsizing and being dumped into the rapids. That's what it feels
Oh, is it like something like in the movie Rain Man when something wasn't the way he thought it should be and he freaks out, kind of thing?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's a bit different, I suppose. But I think with social things, because we're social
What's up, guys?
animals, when our expectations are disrupted,
Hey,
right?
Mike.
Like you go to like a really conservative culture, for example, and a woman goes up and speaks to a man where women don't do that, right? He might be like, who does she think she is? To us, women just can go up and say things to men that aren't their father or their brother or their husband, right? But it can be a grave offense in another culture, and it's based on expectations.
Yeah, so much of this is cultural. Believe me, it's coming from an outlier culture. I see it so clearly.
Now, so what is our culture, Jeff? What is the culture in which
Like autism culture or Gen X culture. Like I think there's overlapping cultures because I think autism in a way is kind of its own culture when you get
we'll say
enough
America.
autistic
We'll
people
say America
together.
because that's the common factor between.
I think if we could
Carolina.
figure that out, we would solve a lot of our social
You're in
difficulties
Washington.
right now. I think a common shared American identity.
So like if
And I hope
let's say,
Gen
like,
X could be part of that solution. Generation X.
okay, so like a culture where a woman could not just go up and talk to a man, and it would be a great offense. That would be like a very conservative, like
Where
Islamic
a
culture, for
woman
example.
could not talk to a man.
Right, like she's like breaking rules.
Like in like Saudi Arabia or
like you can't do that in like in Saudi Arabia or
I might be like making
Afghanistan.
stereotypes, but
No, that's there's some truth in that.
There is.
And but the culture I'm talking about is one where she can do that. But me, given just what I've experienced, because what I have experienced is culture, right? The people who have and have not approached me is, from our culture, where I'm like not even knowing like what's happening. What is the culture where that? What do we call that culture where I'm like, what the fuck could she possibly?
I think it's a generational culture. I think I guess that's the whole point of what I'm discovering is generations are also their own culture. And we're living like the culture that I thought I was living, that I've spent my whole life in. The rest of the world is living in a different culture now, and so I'm another cultural outlier, not only regionally but chronologically or historically.
Yep.
So is it like a millennial culture thing?
Yes,
where, like,
yes, and that's what I want to. Because I'm learning on the stream that all the Gen X people have something that's all like keeping them to like the way we communicate. We're just vibing, and I want to learn what the millennial version of that is. I see it from the outside, like on the edges, looking into it.
Well, the
So
older
you think millennials are that different? I'm a millennial.
Dude,
like,
dude,
I don't
all
know
right,
what you mean.
look. All right, so the millennials that are older, they're around my age. So I'm like the end of Gen X, right? So I'm 45. Now, the ones that are really confusing to me, definitely young millennials and then Zoomers. It's just like on, just like crazy. It's just hard to
What's a
understand.
Zoomer?
Is that the
Generation
post
Z.
millennial
Oh,
generation?
got it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and now it's Generation Z's children are now Gen A. Huh.
Mm.
Generation Alpha. So stupid.
Well, somebody else could worry about those. I'll I'll take ownership of millennial and help them with the Z's.
This generation's living in a bubble.
But some of it was the feminism, like all the stuff that because I think it's because we're not feminists that even though you're a millennial, there's something that maybe there's a male thing that crosses the generations. That's what I want to discover because I get along for the most part with millennial guys much more than millennial women, but there's still little things I notice around safetyism, expectations. They're way more considerate about how what they say and do might affect other people around them and that kind of stuff.
You're talking about millennials?
Yeah, like even the guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I find most people in my generation are way conservative. Like most of my interactions, I have to like break them down in order to figure out what they're actually about or what they're actually saying because they're giving you like these canned responses that are polite and surface,
Yeah.
Yeah.
responses to almost not reveal like their real intentions, and they just want to be polite, not necessarily real. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, almost robotic.
The opposite
Yeah.
of the real world.
One,
And not
one
only,
thing I think
not
about
only,
millennial men is that they're not like they don't really like have this personal connection to like a lot of the more woke, socially conscious mannerisms that you might see in Gen Z because they basically grew up before it happened, right?
Mm.
Like it didn't really become a big thing until the 2010s, and so
Right.
the millennials have basically all grown up by that point, but they have been exposed to it enough that they are affected by it. And I think with men, if millennial men, they often will show signs of being aware of it, maybe certain caution because they just don't want a bunch of shit to like blow up in their face. But like when they talk
Right.
privately, they'll be like they'll say things like how is it that we don't know what a woman is anymore? Like millennial men will be much more likely to say that in confidence with a friend, right? But then they'll be like, oh well, Katie seemed nice, but she just wasn't my idea of a woman,
Hmm.
What they really mean to say is she wasn't a fucking woman, and they think that in their heads. Now, maybe a Gen Z person has somehow convinced themselves, well, Katie is a woman, right? But I don't think millennial men are actually thinking that way.
So they're still in our paradigm, like the traditional
Yeah.
biological
They're-
paradigm.
Yeah, but they kind of have a foot in the other direction. That's why they seem that way, and I think they're kind of intimidated by it because, like, especially because we're like with millennial men, it's like what millennials came of age during the Great Recession. Like, not a lot of them have had a big break. So it's like,
Yeah.
if they become unpopular, it's not like they've got a lot of resources to tap into to sort of keep themselves going. They might be fucked at that point, right? So it's expensive
help
to
'em
become
out.
unpopular.
Interesting. I find a lot of millennials are simps too.
and not
Yeah.
only that,
That's a
I mean,
good way of putting it, the simp generation.
Well, yeah,
Mhm.
because they don't have a lot of money, right? So they aren't as appealing to women, and so they got a simp to try and maybe appeal to them.
Yeah.
Which
If
obviously
anything,
doesn't
a lot
work.
of their wives or girlfriends are making more than they are.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're like, how come you don't do more?
That's
How
that
come you don't do
feminism
more?
that started with us. The empowered.
I
the
mean, it's not
future
necessarily
of the
they're
empowered
saying
female.
what I hate
for
is you
sure.
got to tiptoe around their feelings nowadays.
No, you
Why-
don't.
No,
You
I
don't.
know, I know, I don't have to, and I don't fucking tiptoe around nobody's feelings.
That's a modern myth.
Well, are you single?
I'm single, yes,
Well, that explains it.
but I'm a Gen Xer. I was raised by the baby boomer and Vietnam and factory worker generation. So, I mean, my mom and stepdad never tiptoed around my feelings. They told me how it was. So, you don't like it? Fuck. Who cares?
It's a good
Yeah,
mentality.
I agree. You don't have to tiptoe around their feelings. I mean, that's ultimately why I broke up with my ex.
I fucking
I didn't want to do that.
I was backhanded by my mom when I was younger, and I told her that I'm gonna call Children's Aid. Well, she said, "Go ahead. Here's the phone. I'll fucking dial the number for you right here,
Yeah.
right now."
Yeah.
So
I
one
tried
thing-
those too. Same response.
So my wife, she's pretty liberal. She's a sociologist, so she's around a
sorry.
lot of the well, not a practicing one. She's in a different lane now. But when I first met her, it was kind of
Gotcha.
interesting navigating all the hyper woke stuff or whatever. And I let her know. That I thought it was kind of amusing to me from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Especially around 2016, it was hilarious what happened then. But I'll say that for another time. But one thing that I do now is like when we're watching TV shows and she's trying to watch we call it trash TV, like stuff that's not really that important,
Right.
whatever. But it's kind of a lot of symbolism and woke stuff. What I'll do is I have like a little bell that I have by the
Oh my god!
couch.
You ding a
And
bell.
when I have a comment that I want to say that's gonna piss her off, I start ringing the bell, and she will pause
So
it.
you,
Oh
so
shit!
you,
I want one of those
Oh
here.
lord!
Yeah, she realizes it and she'll just tell me to go away. So I just go, like that. Like when I'm like, oh
You
my
must have
god,
an interesting
I see like
household.
I see an unrealistic couple on the television or something that's completely washed through bullshit. I just go,
Are you for real right now?
Yes.
That's great.
Is this
That's
real?
great.
yeah.
He just had the bell.
Well, the thing is,
He literally has a bell.
I literally do. And also
I thought it was a
I have
metaphor.
I have
I
a
thought it was
giant-
a
no,
I thought it
no,
was a
I have a
metaphor or
button
something.
too.
No, this is
She got me
actual-
this button. She got me a button. I'm gonna
So
play it for you
Nathan,
guys.
when you say an unrealistic
It's a
couple, is
big
it something
red
like
button.
where the wife is the one who's employed as a
kick-ass,
stay-at-home
yeah, like
dad,
you see
and the
like a
wife is
110
perfectly
pound-
happy?
You see like
Oh,
a
yeah,
110-pound woman beat up like 20 dudes or whatever.
Yeah, like you got a couple walking down a dark alley, and this
Our
like
fifth
exactly
year-
110 just beats up four
Christmas.
guys, and you're like, ding, 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 ding.
A couple of years ago,
Right?
she got me a physical button for my desk. The
Oh,
same kind of
shit.
thing. I'll play it right now so you guys can hear it. Hold on a second. I'm gonna hit it's a big red
This
button.
is
You
wild.
could buy buttons. What?
Bullshit. That's horseshit.
Oh yeah, I love those buttons. Those are
Oh.
good.
That's awesome.
So as long as my whole point of this is, if you find
great.
someone who could tolerate you through all the stress and humor and stuff like that, you got to have an outlet. So for me, it's the bell. So if I'm watching a TV show and it's like there's too many bells going off, I just leave.
Jesus Christ!
And
So give me an example. Like, what's a show where you just like dinged yourself out of the off the couch?
okay,
You were like,
okay,
I gotta get out of here.
I totally got on today. I was watching this new lawyer show. It's like a remake of some show from the 80s or something, Matlock or something like that.
Oh, with Kathy Bates.
Yeah, I like
The woke
her.
Matlock.
I like Kathy Bates. I think she's really good. She's very charming. But there was like some bullshit with like a lead character, this like black empowered feminist lawyer kind of thing going on or whatever. And I'm just sitting there when she's talking to the old white guy that she's disagreeing with, and all I can think of is this in the back of my head.
Yeah, dude.
This would
So,
never happen. This is delusion.
So Nathan, I have a question. Can't you
Yeah.
just say, honey, I can't stand this show, so I'm gonna dip out until it's done instead of ringing the
Well,
fucking bell?
Yeah.
She
Hey, I
realizes
have
that-
questions. How did this bell even come to?
Yeah,
I wanna know.
exactly. Like,
This
Well,
could be
because I
merch.
used to-
This
because
is
I
the
used to
this is the anti-woke solution.
I used to like pause the
Woke bell.
television show.
Woke
and
off.
I would tell her what I feel about it, and she's like, "I need to be quiet." So I can't be quiet. I need something. I have to do something.
Man,
Let's do this.
Like Hollywood's gone to hell as far as like
Oh,
everything's fucking.
Jeff, I need to have a bell just like that I can carry with me. And then every time someone else tells me I use they them pronouns, I ring it.
see,
I would
I,
explain
I'll
it to
tell you,
them.
males with bells. It's a new trend.
And then
We're
when
here
they
to
fuck me
defeat
again, like the
wokeness.
librarian did. Remember I said that to the librarian, also tried to correct me. You know, They use they them pronouns. I go ting and
See,
as
Nathan, I give
whatever.
you, Nathan, I give you a lot of props because I could never put up with that. Never in my fucking life.
Well, that's how I put up with it. It's like it's a way to be kind of disruptive, passive aggressive, and signal to her that this show is trash. And I'm
Yeah.
not gonna watch it.
Yeah,
Passive
I
aggression. That's the key.
No, but because I could
We
be.
need
I could.
passive aggression for men.
She hates it because I'll walk in and she's watching a television show, right? And I'll be like, "Oh, so who's the lesbian couple right there?" She's like, "How do you even know? How do you know by looking at it?" I'm like, "I can tell." You want to know how I can tell? That's how I could tell.
See, if I see
a bell in my fucking head, like, you can just see it.
24/7. Oh,
So,
God.
does she make like a lot of money, or is she an amazing cook? Like, where's the benefit here?
right? Right.
We both make good money, and
That's
she's
great.
an amazing person as well. So
Okay,
yeah.
so she's a great human being. She just has these social, socially
Inaccurate-
left
inaccuracies.
tendencies, these
It's
woke
the aesthetic
tendencies.
of the whole point of this is that it's the aesthetic of the appeal of these things. It's not the actual application, because I've also been behind the scenes with a lot of these kind of people, like people who are basically creating generations of more woke crap, right? And honestly, on one-on-one, they're just fine, right? Like if you're just talking to them and doing your thing. But
That's true.
It's almost like when you go to, I don't know if you guys have been to religious camp, where
No.
there's the camp
I
counselor.
saw the movie. I saw
Yep,
Jesus
yep.
Camp.
Okay,
And the
and we'll
one-
just say for like a summer camp thing for church or something, where there's all the sermons and stuff, but behind all the sermons, kids are smoking weed in the bathrooms and
Yep.
and
That was, dude. I would
doing
do that, man.
inappropriate shit. It's the same thing with all those people. It's just this. It's just that. Like all it is.
If that bell would be going out the front fucking door in my household, let me tell you, I fucking.
It's usually within minutes. Like a lot of the newer TV shows are pretty bad about it. You know, like I'll be sitting
I like
there for
how
about 6 minutes. I'm like, oh, I already got the pretense for this whole show. I start
Exactly.
ringing my bell and I tell her my predictions. Like, that person's the bad guy. That's the lesbian. That's the empowered person.
Right.
That's the token minority empowered person.
Now,
whatever.
like, if
But I
you
like how
read-
you figured out like the couple was a lesbian, and she's like, "How do you know they're lesbian?" And it's like, here's the thing.
Well, wait,
We
is this
know-
all on Netflix? Because that's pretty much like every show.
Well, there's like,
Exactly.
it's true.
It could
We
even
both
be
call
ABC.
it trash
It could be
TV.
It's
CBS.
like every
Trash TV,
fucking-
so-
everywhere, man. All of Hollywood is.
We
like
have all the
No, I
different
definitely-
systems. So
We
some
know
of it's on
now
Netflix.
if they're not lesbians, the show doesn't get produced. That's the thing. Like that's how
Yeah.
we know. That's they have to be there.
She was watching this one special was called Good Trouble. Have you guys heard of this?
No.
Good trouble.
So Good Trouble literally is like
Sounds bad.
a Marxist thing about being what is it? Basically it's like passive aggressive ways of undermining systems of power by being a loud voice and being that kind of thing.
Nice.
Saul Alinsky. Yeah, it was Saul Alinsky, but it was a Netflix show called Good Trouble, right?
Of course.
So it's like this cabal of mostly women, mostly non-gender binary, mostly visually ambiguous in their appearances and that kind of thing. Basically have like a huge like a literal commune where they're all leaders in their fields and they all pick daisies and all this kind of shit. And it's hard for me to get through that show. I'll tell you that. That's when I brought the bell out, because I could not deal with like 30 seconds of this show.
Have you noticed that it's like clockwork that white men are either very stupid or they're evil or both?
Or we need to be educated and civilized.
I would rather read
course.
my book, The 48
Of course.
Laws of Power, than watching that show, to be honest with you.
Well, guys, I recommend downloading, like, there's apps and stuff for the ringers. Just watch a modern TV show. See how long it has to you go before you have to ring the bell. Just
That
use
happened
it
with
like-
Evil. I'm a Satanist. I got so excited about that series that episode 2, they had a woke plot line that, like, the whole resolution of the plot rested on systemic racism and implicit bias. I'm like, I'm done. I'm
here's
out.
one thing that I thought about as well, because like notice these things about like current shows makes us. Well, if you go back and you watch something older, you now notice things about those because they're not like that. So it's like
Right.
I've been
That's
watching
what happened
Sex
to
and
me
the
with
City
Slacker.
on Netflix
God.
lately, right? And so the 4 main ladies are all white women, right? And they almost only like date white guys. Like there's almost no non-white like characters in that show. And there's nothing wrong with the show,
Which show?
but like Sex in the City.
Oh yeah, I used to watch it.
Yeah.
Oh,
They did have gays and a few lesbians.
There you
Very
go.
They did have gays,
progressive.
but that's because it's Sex in the City. So like they're
Right.
getting all the sex
Yeah,
in there.
we were. Yes.
I never got into that Joe. I never
Um,
got into that show, but Orange is the New Black. Now that's a great show to get into if you yeah.
Yeah, but Orange is the New Black is made in this era where they're
Orange
you
is
know
the New
they have a
Woke.
little bit of everything, right?
right.
I only watch that show for the prison lesbian sex. That's about it.
Okay. Well, my
Nice.
point is that like I look at Sex in the City and I'm like, you could not get that show made today because if you pitched
No.
a show with 4 white women as the main cast, they're gonna say no,
Yeah.
right? They're gonna be like, oh, we're gonna be accused of being racist. Like, so
Right.
I noticed that like when I first started watching the show, I'm like, oh wow, like this, you can definitely tell it's dated because of this, and you wouldn't have normally noticed that before.
Yeah,
and it's not
that's
like
another thing
dated in the
different
sense that
about this
like
generation.
they play the like a 50s western where they play the Indians are like white guys with like red or brown painted on their face, right? It's not, you're not noticing that. You're actually noticing what is essentially a normal show, but it's like it's not being policed. That's what you notice.
Right.
Well, speaking of shows that cannot get made today, what about old school SNL, Saturday Night Live?
That's
Right.
true.
Back when it was actually funny. It
What
was a
about
comedy show.
what about that skit? Hang on a second. That skit on SNL, the ambiguously gay duo. You guys remember that?
Oh yeah, and Lyle the effeminate
Can
homosexual.
you imagine if they fucking remade that
I
stuff
love
today?
the ambiguously gay duo, dude. That was so good.
I mean,
Oh
you
my
had 2
God.
superheroes riding on a big fucking ship that was shaped as a dick.
Yeah, that was so amazing. Oh my God.
Welcome to our gay bar for
So,
straight
so
men.
why do you think shows are going in this direction? What do you think the primary driver is?
Hollywood
to
is
this
fucking
woke?
woke
The
today,
United
man.
Nations.
Hollywood's fucking woke. They're
The
fucking
the,
woke
the
today.
Geist, the
Yeah.
zeitgeist.
The United Nations.
Well, I think it's
It's
people like
us.
Nathan's wife
It's the
who are kinda
demon
nice,
that
but,
that
like,
Gen
they can
X
be
let out of the
manipulated
bottle. It
into-
was the feminist.
Yeah.
Blame the riot girls.
You don't think it's like advertisers or you know?
Well,
some
at
kind of
this point, it's
agenda?
made its way all the way to the corporate level, so it's just
Somebody very
saturated.
powerful injected this shit.
I think some of it's advertisers. But again, I think it's people go along with it. Like
Many
people who
there's-
are like
Hey,
Nathan's
Shelby.
wife.
Well, now they can just start a YouTube channel and have all the
There's
representation they want.
many levels. There's many levels. There's so many facets. And
But like the problem is that I feel like this stuff is overrepresented. Like, you know, a lot of these
Oh,
groups that
yeah.
are talked about, they're 5, 6, 10% of the population at most, but on TV they're like 50%.
Right.
So-
Who has the highest suicide rates?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you watch a show about like small town North Dakota, and it's going to be a perfectly ethnically diverse
Yeah.
cast, and I'm like, that's you know that's not there. Ding 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 ding
Exactly.
ding.
Yeah,
right?
right. Exactly. I like this bell idea
Yeah,
actually.
that would take a hammer to the table.
No, like when you start to use the bell, it gives you like a certain power over the propaganda a little bit
Take
because
back.
it's like you're catching yourself like, oh my god, why did I ring my bell like 10 times in like 2 minutes?
People have been
Because it's
hoping that men finally find their balls, but maybe they meant bells.
Yeah.
Yo.
Imagine being in a movie theater
Nice.
watching a new movie with your bell.
Oh God.
You can rent a bell at the concession stand,
Well, you guys,
It'd be like-
you guys
it's like
seen
when the
Breaking
liberals
Bad,
like
right?
Rocky Horror.
They do the
You've seen Breaking
like
Bad.
the snapping at
I
slam
love
poetry
Breaking
stuff.
Bad.
So you know the one guy in the wheelchair has like the little bell, right? Because he can
Yeah,
only
yeah,
talk
yeah,
through
yeah.
that. It's sort of like if you had no other way to express your frustration, you only had a bell. That's how you do it.
Where is not lost? You would love this topic right now, Jeff.
Yes, we're in the one day, not
This is
lost.
like-
The
he
one
would be
day
eating
he's up.
this up.
He's probably in bed.
One thing
Poor
that
old thing.
my wife noticed that only because I was ringing my bell so much during certain situations was so I'm really interested in the topic of code switching, right, from a linguistic perspective. And it's very strange that I notice people are code switching, even though I'm not 100% sure. I guess like news, I really notice it in like newscasters and people who are like in professional settings, like people who are on TV a lot, right? doing news segments. The code switching happens with everyone, but I especially notice it with, let's say, minorities, right? And so when I started noticing it a lot more in television shows where they put, I guess, some types of minorities in positions of power where they're not code switching, it just seemed odd to me. So I ring my bell. The example, that Matlock thing, I could tell, I could tell from like this very strong, empowered black woman, no kids, not interested in anything, going through divorce, badass, bitch kind of lady, that the code switching wasn't happening when she wasn't in a scene where she had to look, she was just talking to her ex or something, right? Where it should have happened. And it's because the writers of these shows are like finger puppeting what they imagine someone would be rather than actually getting someone to write that. So it's probably written by white people, not code switching enough for the black person on the screen.
That's some deep analysis. Wow.
Well, I notice it all the time. So
you're a sociologist. Why doesn't notice this?
She notices it more now that I've said it, because when she's watching these things,
she should be the one catching.
The man has to do the woman's job for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're talking about talking about shows and movies that cannot be made today. What about Full Metal Jacket? Try making that today. That movie.
Dude. That's like beyond the pale.
It's a classic.
Full Metal Jacket.
I don't even think Slacker could be made today.
Yeah, there's so many flicks that would not be made
other than here.
I feel like there is a change coming though. Like just the fact that comedy is coming back, like tells me that people are aware of this and they're getting sick of it. I do feel a change coming.
What I call comedy is Andrew Dice Clay. Now that was real comedy.
Yeah, bring him back. That kind of stuff may be changing, but it's getting more embedded in our systems under the Biden equity order, and I think that's going to increase if Kamala, like, even though culturally we're moving on, I think systemically we're just getting started if something doesn't turn it around.
Well, I don't know. I don't think that a lot of feminists are that happy. I feel like they have trouble dating. I think they're working too hard. Right. Like they're proud of their accomplishments, but then they go home and just have trouble having a companion or it's just they're not happy with their life. Like they have a great work life, but their personal life is in shambles.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, man.
Like in regards to what Mike said, and Mike, I still got to catch up on your videos from last time you were on a panel and I subbed to you. Anyways, I'm not in a relationship not because I've tried. It's because I've tried, and guess what? They've all fucking failed.
Yeah, and that wasn't a knock on you, but just today's women, with your stance, it's very hard to find somebody.
Oh yeah, I know.
Work with that.
I dated I was dating a woman before I'm not going to say the pandemic, but before the vid came, and
I love it.
I'm trying to be politically correct. God forbid, fucking YouTube should be a bunch of snowflakes.
No. I keep getting warnings lately on my videos related to that.
But sorry, I dated a fellow Gen X woman before the vid, and she was nice in the start, but later on she turned into she started saying some shit to me that was uncalled for, and I caught it off.
Yeah. Like what?
Like one of the things she said is, "Your mom must be glad she's dead. That way she doesn't have to put up with you."
Oh,
dude, what?
She punched hard. I would.
She might as well have just kicked you in the balls.
Too.
Because I was laid off because the vid, and this is the second time we dated. Okay, because the first time we broke up because. I give people a chance. Maybe it's my fault, which it is, but I give people a chance. You know what I mean? I tend to see the good in people. So I was laid off because of the fucking vid, and I was trying to find a job, and I was on the system at the time, and that's when she said, "You're a fucking loser. Your mom must be glad she's dead. That way she doesn't have to put up with your shit."
Cut them off.
This must have been mid-argument, though. That wasn't conversation.
She said that right in the middle of a parking lot near Shoppers Drug Mart, with everybody fucking walking by. Now, what did I do? I just sat there and took it.
She was showing off, man.
I was just left.
Little slit. I'm sorry. but that's my head.
Yeah,
She,
that seems abusive to me.
oh, she's that power assertive. She needs to assert power on people.
You know, there are women that like you can find like men's activists, like women out there, and
The honey badgers.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, but aside from 12-step recovery and some of my close friends here, I'm not the type to fucking share my feelings. You know what I mean? I like to keep shit in. That's what I do.
well, that's
Look at how
super
healthy
healthy.
it is.
I'd rather keep shit in and help other people than fucking blurt out my feelings.
Yeah, but you got to take care of yourself too.
Yeah,
You'll be better able to help others that way if you do.
I know.
Because then your personality is more like a firecracker. It just you're quiet, and then all of a sudden it's like you
And
you fly off the handle.
Mike, you're right, man. I let things build and build and build until fucking they can't be stored anymore. Fuck.
And that's
Yeah.
weird because you don't seem like the type. Like you
Oh,
seem
yeah,
pretty expressive when I've.
I am when I get to know you, and you guys have gotten to know you guys over the last few months and whatnot. But like, I'm passive aggressive. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you
Shelby,
mean.
they have all this. The Gen X feminism was the third wave feminism, and they were wanting way more than that. They want to re-engineer men and over-socialize us according to their norms.
We educate men.
The third wave feminism.
The battle of the sexes.
Yeah, that's another thing that came out in the 90s was that women are from Mars. I mean Venus,
Yeah.
men are from Mars book.
See,
I'm
there's a
not-
difference between fairness and then overcorrection.
Right.
And that's where I feel like feminism has gone. It's not fairness anymore. It's
Right. They want to invert.
it's a role reversal.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's just
revenge.
not healthy. And that's why men are like really in a bad place right now. Sam talks about this all the time. It's they're the highest representation in prisons, lowest representation in colleges, high mental health rates. They're becoming the highest in unemployment, just the highest in homeless. I mean, it's not good. And I just think that's the overcorrection we're seeing in society, and it's really having a negative effect on men. And I don't think it's right. I think actually, if we were in like this mode of being fair and having actual equal rights, I think we would be much better off. But we're not. Like just when you see the movies, like you were saying, like the white guy's always the stupid one or the simp, or you know what I mean, like, and that's a reflection of what society's kind of pushing down the pipe, and it's really hurting.
Well, every society needs its scapegoat, and the target is shifting to that demographic now. Like it used to be the gays, it used to be the blacks. I don't even think it's the trans anymore, really. But all the other groups seem to be lining up to make white male.
Yep.
I
What,
agree.
It's too obvious.
sometimes they throw in Christians, sometimes they throw in heterosexuality, sometimes they throw in economic status. But white and male are the consistent.
Yep.
Sure. And I don't know if I have a right to say this, but I've noticed a lot of black males are being raised by their mothers, and they're getting screwed up too because they have a very, rough upbringing in the sense of like they're having this like social programming that just really screws them up, sets them back for to be a man in society. They look at the world through a lens that really makes them feel like everyone's against them, especially the white man. That everything's against them personally. Like they have to fight harder than anybody else, and I think that's more detrimental than anything, unfortunately.
Yep. Absolutely.
The single parent household is brutal, and I have nothing against single parents. I think it's one of the hardest jobs anyone has. But I mean, if you're having just one parent, especially just a mom, I mean, bro, you're gonna be trying to find that father figure for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you're right. I am. That was a Gen X thing too, like the single parent household, the latchkey kids. So in a way, that's also like a contributor from Gen X to the current situation.
Baltimore City is a perfect case study right there.
You live in Baltimore?
Yeah,
I do too.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that. There's several of you from Baltimore. Actually, we could start a Baltimore chapter too.
Yeah, see that picture on my avatar, me playing Cajun accordion, my old friend, forget his name, playing the fiddle, my dad's playing the guitar, and we're in Fells Point.
Fells
And
Point,
Oh.
right? That's where he used
yeah,
to busk.
Okay.
we busted. I have 22 video on a playlist on my channel if you want to see it.
Here, let me drop
Oh,
it.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nathan, you have a
I've been
channel
here.
by
I've been
any
here for.
chance?
Do I have what? Do I have a YouTube channel?
Yeah,
But
The other thing,
a
No.
channel you want me to put in?
No, it's.
the other thing that pisses me off about today, this society, is these Karens. Where the fuck did these
Oh,
Karens?
thank you. The Karenocracy. That's yes.
Where the fuck did all these Karens come from all of a sudden? Fuck.
They were around in the 80s, but they were contained. I think all of this started from like people not being able to draw, men not being able to draw boundaries with women.
Oh, I got a relevant thing. You guys were talking about the single parent household thing.
Yeah.
Here is a dinging thing that I always see on television. All the time, it always seems that the way that single motherhood is presented as if it just happened to him like a hurricane, like it was a natural impending disaster, and that the whatever man was associated with the story on the television is just a piece of shit, right? It's always asymmetrical, right? And you see it all over the place, actually. And whenever I see it, I'm always skeptical because it can't just be the case that it's always just the males being complete, sandbags and not really helping their family or not wanting to make something work or whatever. I think a lot has to do with a lot of paternity things, personally, when kids get involved. But it's like a badge of honor to be a single mother, and I'm like, I don't wish that upon anyone for them to be a single mother, whatever. But it's not the same thing as like a hurricane happening or you getting struck by lightning. It's like, why should we be celebrating that? I'm like, I feel bad for someone who might be a single mother or a person who's raised by a single mother. But when I see it on television, it's almost like it's like a badge. It's like, oh, I'm a badass. I'm a single mother. Like, oh, how'd you become a single mother? That's never really no one ever talks about it, at least on television. On individuals, you can know people with things that have happened, right? But whenever I see it on television, this is the only thing I think of. Because I feel like I'm being sold something that doesn't really fit the reality of what actually happens out there. Single motherhood's way more complicated than what they make it seem like on television. In other words,
the turd that is Hollywood.
Most things are.
Yeah.
There's no plunger that's going to be able to save Hollywood. I think it's dead.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even watch. That's another thing Gen X gave the world: indie culture. We didn't need Hollywood or the big labels or anything. We had alternatives to all of that, and we still can.
What do you mean Hollywood, though? I get like
everything that you see on television.
Well, what about like? Is that including like networks like HBO or like some?
They're all involved. They
Slacker was not Hollywood.
I'm talking now, like what's going on now? Not
right, but like there's alternatives. There has been since
really.
our generation. There's been alternatives
not now.
to all that.
Not you can watch old.
Well, yeah, maybe not now. That's why I go back and watch old stuff.
Talking about. Yeah, I've been watching nothing but old stuff, and it's getting
me
annoying.
too.
Well, for the past whatever years now, we have actors and actresses actually coming out now and squealing on Hollywood and how Hollywood's been these last.
We've always known that. It's been like that during the golden age.
Right.
I know. I mean,
Hollywood's always been decadent.
But now
I like that comment that Shelby said about the celebrating single motherhood is like cheering a one-legged marathon racer. Like, certainly there are circumstances that we should definitely feel empathy and humanity for, right? But when 90% of single motherhood is probably initiated, no, it's less than that. It's like 80%. 80% of single motherhood is initiated by the woman. Should we be celebrating that? really, as a
Yes,
culture,
yes,
because
because usually they're getting themselves out of an even worse situation. So it's a sign of empowerment. And I was coming from a single mother myself. I didn't appreciate it growing up, but I look back and I am awed by the amount of heroism that it takes to raise a family our size as a single mother on that size. So I do see the empowerment that people see, and I do see the heroism that people see. And
Yep.
sometimes the single motherhood is the result of a positive decision they're making.
Yeah,
I
I
would
agree
tend to
with
agree
that.
with you more, Jeff, if it was a little more evenly distributed.
Yeah.
If it was, like for instance, let's say 80% of divorces or people being forced into parenthood, single parenthood, was
Mhm.
initiated by men, right? We might have a different thing to say about that, and we look
Well,
we
we don't know the reasons for that 80% though, so I would
there's been
still
a lot
be
of
cautious there.
there's a lot of social research on this. So one of the things that social psychologists and economists have kind of discovered is that this is going to sound very low resolution, but let's say you provide an incentive structure for people to make this such a jump, right? As in, we have
Mm,
social programs and stuff like that. Well, people
very
use
good
social
point.
programs if they're available. It's not saying that they'd rather be on food stamps than be with someone or whatever. However, they're more likely to sustain a long-term relationship and then therefore have possibly better outcomes. I say possibly because you can't say on every little case, but you can look at it from a meta perspective when you're looking at large groups of people, right? In a lot of cases, it is actually good for people to be separated because of things like abuse, circumstances, and a lot of those decisions are
Yeah,
made by
neglect.
individuals. But I can't help from a statistician perspective look at this. I'm like, okay, why is there this 80-20 rule? What's this
What
about?
is the reason for the A? Why are women initiating all these divorces?
Well, we do have no
Sometimes
fault
it's not
divorce.
even divorce. It's just not ever getting married.
Yeah, yeah, that's becoming more and more of a thing. But when we're talking about um, we're looking at longitudinal data, right, from let's say 50 years ago to now, right? We look at things like quality of these sort of relationships. The quality seems to be the most important thing. It's not the relationship status itself, it's the quality of relationship. So if you're in a bad quality relationship, let's say there's abuse, if it's say spousal abuse and kids aren't involved, it's probably better for everyone involved to not be associated with each other, right?
Facts.
That makes sense, right? So just because there's something heralded in your say religion, right? Um, when I would suggest to that person who is being abused, who can't escape it, to say maybe put your religion aside for a moment and think about what's best for you and for them and possibly the children involved. So I'm not against divorce in principle. What I find interesting though is that as we provide more incentive structures, people tend to use them, and it makes sense, right? You put out a free samples in a grocery store, people are going to use them, right? You put
But
out
I'm still like the 80%. You said it's
Mhm.
initiated by women. Is that mostly abuse cases?
No. So most of the time that we've been now asking women for a couple decades now, like, why is this the case? This is what social scientists do. There are a number of reasons, and the number one had to do with financial insecurity. So that stems a lot of times from when children get involved. So say young people don't have money, right? So if you're in your 20s and you have a baby, it's scary. Healthcare is really expensive. Having a baby is life altering, and especially for women, they're the ones usually end up having to do a lot of the child care, especially those first 9 months, right? They just have to be out of the workforce when then. Let's say they were in college.
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit.
Oh, sorry. What's the last thing you heard me say?
Um, did you say something about college?
Oh, I was saying that for a lot of young women, it's having a baby or when they're young, let's say in their 20s, can be really destabilizing for biological reasons, obviously. But let's say they're in college, they may have to drop out, they may not be able to make it. It's very, very difficult. So when people are not married in the first place, well, it sort of decouples some of that dilemma because they're able to get support they need through other services. So first pathway would be like immediate family, that kind of thing, but then also through welfare, that kind of thing, health services that are provided specifically for women, which they should be there, by the way. I'm not advocating for some sort of solution here, but I can't help but notice that when we have the services, more people use the services, and then so the causality kind of goes both ways in this sort of univariant analysis, right? And you can look at other countries of comparable human health indexes and things like that, and if you remove some of the social programs, you find that outcomes for individuals seem to improve as people become more resilient, which is counter notional to what we would imagine. The whole point of the social safety net would, in more people who are more socially constructive, is when people fall, we should be able to pick them up, right? The whole idea isn't
the net just catches you. It doesn't necessarily pick you up.
Right.
It just stops you from falling further.
Right. But people are using it to also pick themselves up, not just to fall.
Well, I think that's good that they're doing that. I don't know that the system necessarily makes it easy to do.
Well, there's always the point of this is that there's always unintended consequences to things that I agree with. We should make sure that those who are the most vulnerable get protected the most and have the availability to participate in society. Right? I don't want single mothers to do that, but the mechanisms that I prefer are a lot more local and less variable to systemic issues. For instance, I'd like to be able to help a poor woman out that I know who happens to be pregnant, maybe alone, maybe scared. I prefer to intervene more personally on that if I can help it, but we do have other things in play. So you were going to ask a question.
So Nathan, am I correct in assuming, Nathan, that you're using the analogy of a net to say that some people use a net as a crutch?
Oh no. I'm not even blaming individuals. It's just there's always patterns of, let's say you have a social system where we use taxation to create some sort of rebound or some sort of net, whatever metaphor you want to use. The more we put these out there, the more people are incentivized. There's a positive incentive for them not to fail, but to not to succeed. I think there's a difference. I'm not saying anyone's voluntarily trying to go into something like single motherhood, right? I'm not saying.
No. I wasn't. No. I just wanted to, because let's face it, some people out there do use that net as a crutch. I mean, I'll be the first to admit it. Some people do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've known people that don't get married purely because by not getting married, they qualify for some of these benefits that you're talking about.
Right. And I've seen married couples. I've done some research on this too. With people who are of certain socioeconomic backgrounds, when one of the partners has a major health crisis, sometimes it's actually better for them to get a divorce just so that, let's say, one of the partners can get on like things like Medicaid. And it's actually more common, you might think. They would still live in the same house. They wouldn't have any sort of issue with each other, but they get divorced just so that one of them can get on a special kind of healthcare, right? Because maybe they have an acute chronic illness of some sort. They got cancer or they need a surgery. They make too little money to pay for it themselves with the insurance they have, and they make too much to get it as a couple. So what they do is they just get divorced so that they can kind of cut some.
Yeah, healthcare is to me is actually justifiable, and I think our healthcare system is a fucking disaster.
Yeah,
but in terms of like there was a lady that lived upstairs, and she was just having babies because every time she has a baby, she gets another check every month. I mean, literally. She had
women
like 8
women
kids,
here too,
not married, multiple dudes living in the house. I don't know what the fuck was going on up there. Babies popping out everywhere.
By the way, I don't mean to pick on just women. Men have a lot to say with this too. They're the other part of the equation.
Of course.
Unfortunately, because of the fleeting nature of male impregnation, I guess, like one man can get 1 million women pregnant in theory, right? Yeah. Because there's no restraint on the male's part too to exercise things like birth control or even some abstinence or what have you.
Well, what about also child support? That's a big.
That's
big
also a big
hindrance.
Right. Well, the people a lot of times, especially with younger people, who are less established. Young men don't have any money either, so they're kind of like in the same position that women are, as far as not being able to have capital to support a baby through some sort of transition to adulthood, right? Because 18 years at the very minimum, if you're legal, and then probably further than that if you're a more moral person and you have associations with your kids, right?
Of course.
Men are definitely not off the hook on this. I'm not trying to just pick on single mothers. Just
Well,
'cause
I
they're
have a
bunch of-
question about that. Why do people see single pregnant mothers as innocent? And I understand maybe physically vulnerable, maybe
I don't
frail
find them
because of the
innocent.
pregnancy, but innocent?
Who finds them innocent? Like,
Well, you kind of
tell
painted
you.
this picture of protecting the weak, and maybe I'm adding it innocent, but I have this picture of this innocent, weak, vulnerable creature that needs protecting, and I don't necessarily think of women that get pregnant as innocent. They don't just wind up pregnant and not. How did I get in this situation? I'm suddenly pregnant, and now I need all this protection and defense.
Well, that's kind of like my criticism of the TV shows, is that they make it seems like they just woke up one day and they were pregnant and accidentally just a single mother. I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
I want to see what. Yeah, you may be.
There's some agent, like I notice maybe, okay, let me not say women, but I notice people in this tend to gloss over ages. So like they tell a story, and there's one little part of the story where they made a decision or took an act, but that gets eliminated along with the accountability for it, and then everything comes about how they're the passive recipient of this experience or this force or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be.
huh?
Know the movie Juno? Have you guys heard of that movie Juno?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it has this one actor person.
Elliot.
I don't know if we're allowed to talk about Juno, but the actual movie itself was kind of interesting because it kind of showed accidental pregnancy, as being a huge thing, not just for the biological person and the who's carrying the baby, I guess. I don't want to get you kicked off YouTube. And the you guys know the plot of this movie? Basically, it's
kind of sort. I saw it when it first came out, but
Like
it was
they're
like a little
basically-
indie film about who is it? Was it Seth Rogen?
it's one of those.
Is Ellen Page, now Elliot Page.
Mhm.
Oh,
one
that's
weird-looking
right.
dude.
That's him. Her.
Yeah, where she gets pregnant. I guess she's like a teenager or something, and he is
something
too.
like that.
They did a really good. That's like a movie that I wouldn't ding my bell on, because it actually kind of goes through what that's about, right?
Mm.
Reviewers gave it
But
zero.
women
dings.
don't
This is
like
the
a
best
pregnancy
movie
is
theater.
is framed as though women find themselves in a situation, but they put themselves in they don't find themselves in it. They're in that situation because of choices and decisions and actions that they made and took.
Exactly.
But that gets eliminated from the narrative somehow. And I
mean,
noticed that's a pattern with a lot, not just pregnancy, but other things as well.
I think it's more or less, the mother is with the child for a long period of time, so the focus is on that relationship, I think. By no means are men off the hook, though. I mean,
No, I don't think so either. I think there's 3 stakeholders in a pregnancy.
And this is kind
All
of my
3
thing
have-
with abortion, is that I hate the idea of taking or controlling anybody on a federal level. I actually like the state, states voting what they want, but it's like they're all wrapped up in this, like, I made a mistake. I need to, I don't even like to say the word, to be honest. And it's like, why don't you just take a morning after pill? Why don't you just throw a helmet on? Like, what is going on here? Why are we like relying on that? Morally, I think it's disgusting, but I also believe that, hey, if your state decides what's legal, what's not legal in your state, you can behave that way. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, but just protect yourself. You don't need, like, if you're getting more than one, I mean, like, something's going on here. And I am not talking about exceptions either, by the way.
So
Right.
imagine like if I described that like single mother thing on television and movies and stuff, how
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right, has a certain sort of we see it for in an instant, like, okay, I understand what the plot is based off of this, yada yada. Imagine if there was a counter plot. Imagine if when two young people, let's say one got pregnant and say they're a teenager or maybe in their 20s or something, instead it was like celebrated, right? From like a like, oh my gosh, we're bringing. Let's say this
It
happened
used
in a
to be.
religious context. I'm not a religious person, by the way, but let's say we had a culture where that was happening. How do you think progressives would feel? They'd be ringing their bells every time they watch something. Like they'd be ringing their bells just like I'm ringing my bells in their own heads, right? It'd be
there's a
interesting to see
song that
more of a
goes with
balance of that sort of perspective, just for the sake of a variety. I'm just so sick of seeing it. Like it's not appealing to me. It just makes me want to turn off the television when I'm like, okay, yeah, got it. Oh, wow, what was that one TV show with the mother and the daughter, and she was living in like this really big house somehow, and she was like a waitress basically, and what was it? It's like a God.
What year? What decade?
Early 2000s. Hold on.
Grace Under Fire?
No, it's Laurelyn and her daughter.
The Gilmore Girls.
Gilmore Girls. Okay, so that's like a funny example where it's not super serious, kind of cheeky. You know, the basic plot though is like mother who runs a restaurant, right, and her daughter. She's just trying to raise her daughter, right? And so the mother has relationships with people, and the daughter is trying to find herself. And it is a good story. I think it's a cute story.
Yeah, I used to watch it. It was,
but it's sort of, how to put it. It's hard for me to suspend my belief while watching it a lot of times because I'm like imagining, okay, this lady who's like basically a restaurant manager or whatever, hotel manager person, she's not making enough money to be living in that house. Yep. They eat out every single night.
Even then,
well, you know,
weren't they living in their like grandmother's house or something? They all lived together.
Of course.
Well,
the grandparents were very rich, right? So the grandparents would always be there to help them out and stuff like that. But it kind of centered around the daughter coming to age and all this kind of stuff. But it turns out that she kind of grew up shitty. Like she started out with a lot of potential, and then she kind of disappointed everyone. And that was my take on it. And I was like, oh man, like. Come on, like help me out here. I want to be able to believe this because it's very enjoyable to watch, but like I just can't get there. I can't get there. So I end up walking away. Gilmore Girls, that's what it's called. Thank you. Yeah. Couldn't think of the name. I watched it with my wife and I enjoyed parts of it and other parts I didn't.
I always felt guilty like sitting down and watching Gilmore Girls like by myself.
As a man, it was a cute little show for the time.
It is. It
really was.
You know, but I mean, if I walked into a room and some dude like is watching Gilmore Girls and I didn't know who they were, I'd
well,
be
they have the bronies.
I'm getting out of here.
I don't think you have much to worry about, as long as the bronies are out there. Someone said they're making another brony, like a brony sequel or something.
Oh God.
I mean, a My Little Pony reboot.
Oh, so the interesting thing about the from a public health perspective, there's a lot of research being has been done for like the past 50 years on that exact same thing that Brooke was talking about like rape, incest, so on and so forth. And a lot of the data is self-reported, but there are some qualitative data that is publicly available and some of it is not. And I encourage people to look at the trends about that. So the minority of cases are going to be for rape and incest.
That's what I thought. She was saying.
Or what about life at risk?
Life and risk. That's a troubling one. Because the standards in which we measure these things have changed over time. Medicine's gotten more advanced, right? We know a lot more about the human body. Things that might have put women at risk, say 30 years ago, some things we just didn't know. So because we have more information about what might put a woman at risk, because we understand physiology better and we have better medicine,
like C-sections.
That's an interesting one. That's an issue though with human beings in general because of our gestation periods and our hips and stuff like that. But that's been for eternity. Basically, what I'm getting at is because there wasn't
a lot. That's why I was
because we didn't have the concern, because we didn't have the information about what put women at risk as much as we do now. Let's say 50 years ago, the argument for women at risk has changed over time. It's always existed as far as being a potential, right? Because childbirth is a risky business, right? It's, if you look at our ancestors and you look at pre-industrial ages, first of all, most kids didn't live to be the age of 5, a lot of them. The ones that did, life expectancies were really low. We look at our history as a species, and we're kind of living in a very lucky time. So pro-lifers should be really happy that we're living in the best time to actually be alive when it comes to these kind of things. But yeah, I encourage people to look at that type of research because it is fascinating. So, for instance, prenatal, I could speak to one thing. I don't know if any of the ladies in the chat have used prenatal vitamins.
And if any of the ladies want to come up too, y'all can. Here's the link.
Yeah, so that's an interesting low-hanging fruit one I can talk to about, because my wife's starting to take them because we want to have kids. We're thinking about having them soon. For a long time, it was not recommended that women take the regimens they do now because they didn't know what the type of side effects were. But since more research has been done, they've actually showed some efficacy for taking the prenatal vitamins to help alleviate certain types of outcomes, such as birth defects and so on and so forth, right? If you go back 25 years ago and you look at the vitamins that people were taking then, many of them were not recommended. Therefore, some of the outcomes we couldn't even measure because we don't have enough time to do that from a statistical standpoint, just didn't exist. So since medicine's evolving, we know more about the risk factors. Therefore, the options for something like abortion seem more plausible. But historically speaking, those risks always existed and continue to exist. So it's sort of interesting. Like you might know about this, Jeff. An example would be like autism, right? Oh, the overdiagnostic criteria for things like ADHD, right? Where we have this ADHD pandemic right now, or if you want to call it that, where everyone has ADHD. Well, ADHD has always existed, just that we measure it differently now. It's easier to prescribe. So when we talk about health risks associated with babies, we kind of have to approach it historically like that too. I know it's kind of like a rough metaphor, but yeah, I don't want to just keep it just 100% biological and about women's parts and stuff like that. You kind of get what I'm getting at, though.
Well, what are the main reasons then that people are having abortions?
Economic insecurity. That's the number one reason. The number one self-reported reason.
They're like, I can't do this. It's too much. I'm not up to this.
They don't want to raise it. Well, they've done things called sentiment analysis for women who are actually able to volunteer this kind of information in the form of looking at what they can write about it, or they interview thousands of women who've had abortions and they ask them a number of questions or have them actually write stuff out. The sentiment analysis has to do with financial insecurity, though. So financial insecurity being, I can't raise this baby, I can barely afford my rent, or I'm just a student, or I'm young. It's associated with more young people. Now, as you
I
get
can
older,
see that it's a financial. They're removing a financial burden.
but this is an age thing. 100%. So what I'm getting at is women who are older tend to get abortions more often because of actual health concerns. So maybe they have pre-existing conditions. Maybe they've already had children before. Maybe they're already at risk. Because as you get older, it actually becomes more risky to have children. You're more likely to die and things like that. Right. So it's tricky. So you got to ask yourself two questions. And so what's the age of the group of the women you're examining, right? You're asking the question of what they're using abortion for. And then you have to look at historically as well. And then look at what medical knowledge we have at the time. And this is very tricky research. It's very tricky. So a lot of it has to be done generations after things have happened. So it's always retrospective. We can't make a lot of predictions. Although one thing that has been measured is the effect of no-fault divorce on abortions. That's a pretty well-studied phenomenon, and there's a whole literature devoted to it. It's very interesting. There's several camps of thought on the matter, and I'm not an expert on it, but I've surveyed some of it.
What's the solution? If we even know the problem.
Honestly, it's going to sound cheesy, but it's gonna have to boil. It's gonna boil down to personal accountability. No one's.
That's what I was saying.
I know it sounds really stupid, but I say this to young men who get really upset. I'm like, hey, no one's
true, though.
forcing you to pork someone and get someone pregnant. No one's forcing you to do that.
Yeah, the bun doesn't always need cream filling, if you know what I mean. No, but what I was gonna say is, when it comes to like the exceptions with like grape and all the other stuff, I feel like it should be not classified as, an abortion. I think it should be classified as like a medical procedure of some sort. You know what I mean? Like separate it from just your traditional, hey, I just don't want this, to like I'm in a medical situation and I've been in I've been attacked personally or whatever. I think at that point it should be classified differently in order to be probably treated differently by insurance and make it like more of a emergency thing, not like a lifestyle thing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, one thing that there's an old trick that doctors used to do in the 60s and 70s when a lot of this was in contention. Women would come in and they may have been a victim of, a violent attack. I'll just say that. And so one of the first things that the doctor would do is they would give them a blood test, determine whether or not they need other kinds of attention, I guess you could say, for certain things. I'm being very vague here because it's sort of it's kind of nasty, but they would give them shots of estrogen right away. So one of the things that you can do is, doctors were basically finding ways to medically induce a self-termination at an early stage, especially when it was at the offset of a direct trauma. I'll just say that. And the body kind of took care of itself. And this is a way that many doctors can get away around the moral conundrum too, as well as the legal one. So it's not practiced like that anymore. I guess it depends on where you are, but often doctors find ways to do things around the system. But if they're caught, the consequences are severe. So,
I know that happens with the trans stuff too. Some of the states are passing laws that penalize the doctors. But is that a failure of the medical system, the legal system, the political system? Because it seems like people should be able to get the medical treatment that a doctor determines that they need.
Mm-hmm. I think
I would want to prioritize that.
I think there's an ultimate utopian convergence of ideals here when it comes to bodily autonomy as well as pro-life. And it kind of looks like this. And I say utopian because I don't think it's realistic. I don't think it can be implemented. But it kind of looks like this. If you want to be 100% pro-choice and 100% pro-life at the same time, we need to live in a world in which every baby makes it to term. And every baby makes it a term because people had a choice in the matter. There was no accidental pregnancy. There was no recourse against someone who had, say, a medical intervention if they needed one. Yeah, so it is a bunch of systemic failures, right? I like what Brooke said there. Yeah, and that's sort of utopian, but that's sort of my views on it. And a lot of it does boil down to the boring old accountability. Because somehow in my 36 years of living, I haven't gotten anyone pregnant, and I just
me neither.
Just like a whirlwind that attacks like a single mother on a television show. I don't have any kids. I can't explain it, right?
My sister ended up being a single mother, but for her it was intentional. She just decided she wanted a baby, and she literally just picked somebody, and like within a month or two was pregnant, and she never even stayed with him. She just like in her mind decided, I want a kid. This is the age that I want to have one. I don't want to wait any longer, and she did. And then inevitably she found somebody that she's now married to. But I mean, the actual like time when she was getting pregnant, it was just like, I want a baby, and she found a sperm donor and made it happen. It was the craziest thing. I'm like, she's going through school, she's got a lot on her plate, and she just added a baby to the list. And And God bless her. I mean, my niece is absolutely beautiful, but at the time, I thought it was just like, of all the decisions you could make, this would probably be the worst one in terms of timing. But it worked out great in the long run. But it's I don't know. Just seeing my sister get pregnant and not be with somebody and not having being financially stable or
Well,
having
why
a
did she make
stable
that choice? Like,
household
she decided she wanted a
was
child,
hard
but
to
she
see.
didn't have the apparatus to sustain a child.
I mean, she had enough income, but like she lives in the Boston area, so it's like, rent is nearly impossible on your own. Childcare was going to be a big
Well, then don't
issue.
have a child.
No, I understand that. Well,
Look, there are
I'm
all
with you,
kinds
Jeff.
of cultures who instill in people from a very young age that you are not an adult until you have children.
Well,
Yeah.
but you're
I've
not
heard that from countless
obligated to
people.
adopt that belief as an adult. You can
Oh,
reject
sure.
any beliefs.
And I agree. I mean, like when I was going to school, like I'm 45, so my teachers would say you're not an adult until you get on your own and you have kids. While my parents would say, you know what, Derek, you're a teenager, you're a fucking man, you're an adult, start acting like it.
And Brooke, welcome. We definitely want to
Hey,
get
Brooke.
your perspective on this.
I mean, for me, I think it should be up to the person who's carrying the fetus. But I also think if the nation or the states are going to be the ones that make up the mind that abortions are going to be against the law, then I also think men should get I forgot the name of it, but clipped.
The snip.
Snipped.
Well, they have that
Because
option.
because in reality, men can have more kids in a 12-month period than women can.
We can.
Yeah.
Well, you can create more
yeah.
kids.
Yeah, you guys can.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. Come on.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's already been said, but like realistically, women can only carry one pregnancy to term. Yes, there are pregnancies that have multiple fetuses and like twins, triplets, quadruplets. But usually, most women only end up having a singleton. So, like, men can have multiple kids in a year, when women usually have 1 to 2 kids in a year, depending if they're carrying a singleton or multiples. Meaning, and when I mean multiples, I mean like twins, triplets.
Right.
So,
And-
were you saying that men would need to be like mandated to get themselves clipped? Did I just hear you say that?
Yeah, I mean,
What the fuck?
no. I mean, see, that's my.
And they worry about the handmaid's tale.
Fuck that.
But if
I mean, how is it
people
much
want-
different than the government controlling when and how women can give birth? Like, come on,
Yeah.
don't clutch your pearls all of a sudden when you want to tell every woman when they can have a fucking baby.
Wait. One
Yeah, I'll let you
involves
handle this.
forcing a medical procedure on somebody. One outlaws the medical procedure. I think they're different.
No, they're not.
Yeah, they're very different in a way, but they're not different in the way of intruding on people's bodily
Forcing
autonomy.
somebody to change their body and to make it impossible for them to have children against their will is not the same as abortion.
As keeping a
being
procedure
big
away
issue.
from a woman that could save her life and then kill her because she had something happen to her baby
Dude,
while it was still in the womb.
We
I'm
talked
sorry.
about the
Where
life
is-
at risk.
That's what I'm
cases.
saying. Where is anybody saying that the exceptions or the life at risk should be illegal? Like where you can't get one. Where's
Why can't
anybody
y'all
saying
just
that?
admit that you hate men? Let's get to the root of all this.
Wait. I
Thank
don't
you,
hate
Jeff.
men. I don't hate men. I'm just saying that if I were to get raped and pregnant after being raped, I don't want to have to carry a fetus to term. Because not only would that be harmful for my physical well-being, but that would be harmful for my mental health.
But you also didn't make the choice. to get pregnant. So that's a different situation.
Right. But where is anybody saying that the exceptions,
We're not. Though we
would not allow you?
specifically started with exclude
Right.
like why we're taking those off the table. And Nathan
But
did all the
it continues
statistics and
being
the
a talking
research.
point, and I just don't get it.
I don't either.
So you're
'Cause I
saying
thought
there
we
are
had a
not places
statistician
that are
on
not
panel
allowing
that
those
cleared all of
exceptions?
that out.
Are there? Are there? I don't know. Are there? Tell me.
Yeah, there are states. Yeah.
Where?
Texas being one of them.
What I missed the states what? I didn't hear the first
So you're
part.
saying in
I
Texas,
thought
if you
Ohio
get
was
if you
another
get
one. I have to
raped,
look that up.
then
But
you can't get a abortion. You're saying that?
Yeah,
That's a fact?
I only know this because a friend of mine, her 16-year-old daughter got raped.
Well, let's just check.
Her 16-year-old daughter got raped. She lives in San Antonio, and her daughter cannot get an abortion after being impregnated by someone who raped her daughter. So my friend's 16-year-old daughter was not allowed to get an abortion.
My 16-year-old mother was raped and had me.
Here, there are some. I'll put it's complicated. They have the map here. I will put.
Was
Hey,
she forced?
Moose. Good. Yeah. It's been a good chat. Wow, waking up to the panel verse.
I hope you guys realize for me, as someone with a uterus, I don't want someone telling me what I can and cannot do with my body.
But it's not only you. That's the issue. There's other stakeholders.
See, I agree with her. I don't think that anyone should tell anybody what to do with their body. However, I'm more on the federal level with that. I think states should run a state the way they want to run a state, per usual. And if the state decides, hey, we don't want this, we don't want that, well, that's the way we've been doing it since we've been 50 states. So
yeah, and when the states go over a line, we tell them they can't. Like when they enslave people or try to keep that, or where they do other things, the federal government is there to stop each individual state from enacting their particular discrimination that they want to do on their populace.
Perfect.
So this, I loathe
and
this
they ruled
stupid
on
states argument. We settled it during the Civil War. If you cross the line, the federal government can smack you down. But yeah, you can do your states whatever.
Fair
but
enough.
if all of a sudden you choose to enact some shit on one part of your population, the federal government's going to come in on you. It's such a stupid argument at this point. We're 150 years past that argument.
I don't know.
What's
like I
the
said,
argument?
I think the exception should be considered a medical procedure, not a form of contraception. And I think that's where we're getting kind of in the weeds a little bit. There's zero reason why Texas should make it illegal or force you to have a baby in which you had in which you were raped. I think that's insane. That's fucking insane.
Well, there's 9 states that have total ban.
Yeah, no, I completely
no bans
disagree with
whatsoever.
that. That's stupid.
I like what Shelby said.
It's not just your, but that's the problem. If it were just your body, I don't think anybody would care.
Yeah,
it's
but
not
I mean,
cosmetic surgery.
But hold on, men give up their right to have any say in this when they decide to not be protected.
I don't no, I don't think they do.
Why not? You
Why,
decided
when
to
did
take
that
a chance.
come? In the entirety of human history, that wasn't a thing.
No, but I'm saying if you blast, okay, and you didn't wear a helmet, that's on you. You decided your end here. After
I think both partners, the responsibility rests on both adults to whatever. If there's a certain outcome they don't want, they need to take responsibility for protecting, preventing that. It's a shared responsibility. But when however it happens, after it happens, you think the male gives up his right as a stakeholder? I don't. That's part of his. He has as much investment in the outcome as the female does.
Once you send the swimmers inward, you've said, okay, my end is done.
No, I think there's a responsibility.
Your responsibility was back before you went pop, in my opinion.
Society thinks otherwise because the paternity, there are responsibilities that come with paternity.
So, I mean,
And the world has
Thankfully,
moved this direction either as well. Like the world has moved in the direction that consent to sex is not the same as consent to procreate. That's the direction the world is moving in. I know people are really against that in a lot of ways, but that's just where we're going.
But
Consent to
people
sex
are
is not
aware
consent to
that that is a
procreate.
risk. And so I think all the parties involved
Well,
have a
absolutely, but that's just
responsibility to
because we're at a
mitigate
point where
that
we
risk.
don't have the technology, or we won't allow ourselves to get to the point where we've enacted things that get us to the place where we can make sure that every child, or as many as possible, are active choices by their parents. Right? To me, that's the problem right now with the world. Children should be an active choice. Like every child.
Yeah,
should
but
be an
is
active
odd.
choice.
That's not how humans work currently.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You know,
But
in
that's
my
evolution tricking us to have sex so that we procreate, right? Like that's just the want, the need outside of our logical reason for doing things.
as someone who has a uterus, let me reframe this. So, like my back in the 80s, my dad got custody of me, which even nowadays is, unheard of. But back then it was extremely unheard of. And I'm gonna use my dad as an example of like if a woman chooses to carry a fetus to term, then the man needs to step up to the plate.
Yeah, in an ideal world where people act as we want them to act instead of how they were more likely to act.
in my
about
own
the sentiment analysis that's been done in a lot of post interviews with people who've had unwanted pregnancies who terminate them. I'll just say that. One of the things that researchers discovered, and this has been replicated, is that when you compare them against general populations of people of relatively the same age and socioeconomic backgrounds who do have babies, you notice there's a shift in language being used. And the only reason I'm bringing it up, because I saw it in the chat, was when people who are more, say, pro-abortion or have had abortions themselves, they often refer to the fetus rather than the baby, while people who are more pro-life or have had babies, mostly just women, by the way, we're just talking about that, they refer to it as the baby. So I'm pregnant with a baby at 3 weeks. I'm pregnant with a baby, not that you would know at 3 weeks, but I'm pregnant with a baby at 6 weeks, or I'm carrying a fetus at 6 weeks. One of the things that is a predictor of how someone's gonna have a stance on this kind of things is what status they grant the clump of cells, whether it's a fetus or if it's a person.
Please, the thing is, you're assuming that because I use the term fetus, you're.
Oh, actually, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about someone else in chat.
Oh, okay. But I just want to say, please don't assume when someone uses the term fetus that they are pro-choice.
Flo, come up.
Well, it's certainly not the one-on-one correspondence, but it's something like the factor for that, and this is replicated.
I would feel safe making that assumption.
Well, it's sort of like if someone's unironically referred to something as being problematic, right? You can make certain assumptions about their political beliefs based off of a single statement. Now, this isn't just done with this. It's done with this type of sentiment analysis is done with a whole catalog.
Kind of dangerous thinking in a way.
Yes, you got to be careful. So
dangerous thinking. What is that?
Now,
thinking is dangerous. Is that the next thing that's harmful?
That's what statisticians get paid to do.
You take everything so literally, Jeff. No, I mean it's thinking that will veer you down illogical paths. Like if you're just assuming that the use of a specific word denotes someone's entire ideology, that's just kind of silly because words themselves.
But what's dangerous about that? You use the word dangerous, so don't accuse me of like having a reaction to it when you you chose a hyperbolic word in the first place. Accountability.
I don't mind his criticism because it's well warranted. That's why there are people who devote their lives to investigating these things, social scientists namely, and what they're trying to figure out is like, okay, if there is a commonality here in the words that we're using because of certain definitions or preconceived beliefs, well, if we're going to entertain a philosophical discussion, let's talk about the substance of it. it's not this or not that. Let's focus on the words, right? And that informs things like ethical discussion. So whether or not a fetus has personhood as a philosophical topic seems to be at one of the hearts of the matter regarding this. So we could talk about state rights, we can talk about economics, positive incentives, negative ones, so on and so forth. But philosophically, it seems that the heart, at least one of the hearts of the matter, is whether or not a fetus has personhood or not. Because if it does, then it goes one way. If it doesn't,
where does life begin?
Right. So depending on what category you fall into, as far as self-reporting or other things we could do using statistics, will determine how a discussion most likely will go and what likely someone's going to purport. That's all. I'm just saying it's sort of a fairly robust.
The personhood argument's more of a legal argument, I think. But I think a lot of people have backed away. Actually, I think especially conservatives have backed away from the personhood argument because I find the personhood argument to be a dead end. I think it leads them right into a brick wall. The second you legally classify a fetus as a person, what is stopping the woman from legally suing that fetus for using her body without consent? Right? Like you basically kill your entire argument if you give personhood to a fetus because
This isn't my argument, by the way.
No,
That's
I'm just
exactly
saying.
the bullshit.
This is what social scientists have discovered and what philosophers are now discussing when it comes to, okay, how we even talk about this if we're all talking past each other, right? So you might notice on the sort of tertiary level, people get caught up in the weeds a little bit because of the language. And I think your intuition's correct about it being kind of difficult to reverse because depending on your presuppositions, you may have a completely different interpretation of the state of affairs, especially when we talk about specific people. That's always really difficult, right? So when you're talking about groups of people, well, we can use the tools of science. We could use philosophy, which has a whole branch of ethics, which also overlaps with law, right? So it's not completely lost on me, but I think you're on the right track there.
Someone, I don't know who said it, but someone also said, taking personal responsibility. And for me, I need to take personal responsibility for what I say and how I act or react, just like anybody else needs to do the same for themselves.
Well, I'll say this. In all my years, my over 20 years of 12-step recovery, I have sat with a lot of women, listened to a lot of women share, about them having abortions, and they all have one thing in common. They regret it because they often wonder how that child would be later on.
But those women you have talked to don't speak about women as a whole. They can only speak about themselves. Just like I can't say that if you use the F word, you will regret it because somebody else regrets using the F word. And I'm
right. Regret doesn't imply you would make a different decision.
Yeah.
And from my personal experience, my mom, I'll tell you this right now. My mom did not want to have me. It was a mistake. She forgot to take the pill the next day. But when she held me in her arms, she was glad that she had me.
Of course.
And my...
What did you expect your mother just to have you and then continue being like, well, don't want this kid. I'm just going to hate it for the rest of its life. Of course, once you actually bring the life into the world, you put your all into that life.
And my biological...
It's so amazing.
And my biological father only gave my mom $50 and said, here, I'll see him when he is 18. Well, my mom, God rest her soul, I love her so much. She was holding down a job in a factory and bringing me back and forth to London, Ontario from my city because I was born sick. I was born with a heart murmur. So my mom was holding down a factory job and bringing me back and forth to London each and every week. So, abortion, that's a touchy subject for a lot of people.
Sorry,
Yeah,
but I was
especially women.
muted. That's an incredible story.
So I mean, I technically I shouldn't even be here with my heart murmur, my 3 overdoses, my alcohol poisoning, I attempted unaliving myself a few times. I shouldn't be here today.
Sorry to hear that, dude.
So I mean,
You know what, dude? I can't even tell though, man. You sound great.
What's going on?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I've worked hard to get where I'm at today, real hard.
Dude, if you like, had you not said that, I would never guess that that's something that happened in your past. You seem like you got really good recovery going.
Well, I mean, it's one day at a time, right? It's fucking.
Of course.
It's a struggle, man. But I'm here.
Sometimes it's a millisecond at a time.
The only things I'm addicted to are coffee and cigarettes, and of course YouTube when I'm not working. So.
Oh yeah, that's breakfast for me, man. Coffee and a Newport.
And work. I mean, I hide my emotions in my work. I own a renovations company, and when I'm pissed off, I like to bang in a nail.
It's actually pretty healthy.
Yeah, well, thanks. But you know what? I mean, abortion is. I'm not a woman, thank God. I'm gonna go out again, but honestly, and I might get some haters for this, but I'm against it because I believe every life is precious.
You know, Shelby just put in the chat saying we are not replicants. Not everyone has the same experience, which is true.
That's true.
Everyone, like for instance, I'm just going to use Shelby, Jeff, and myself because the three of us know each other in person. If the three of us were to go to the Seattle's Great Wheel and get stuck on top, yes.
That'd be fun. Sorry.
Jeff would think it would be fun, and I would be freaking out.
Why?
Because I would be freaking out if we got stuck because of because there'd be a trauma response that I would rather not get into. But like if Shelby, myself, and Jeff are all to get stuck on the Great Wheel, at the highest point, yes, we had the same experience of getting stuck, but that experience would be different to the three of us. Jeff would think it would be fun. I'd be scared shitless.
Oh, and Shelby would be glued to the floor. I'd be like, yay, I'm getting even more out of my money than I paid for. This is great. And they'll come and fix it eventually. And meanwhile, we get to look at the city and look out over the bay. Look how we could take all these pictures. Absolutely, it would be a great opportunity that just landed in our lap.
And honestly, I don't know why the hell I told you guys my story a little bit, but I'm shaking. I was shaking inside, so I apologize.
I had stepped away, and I probably missed it, Derek. But
I apologize for.
No, bro. There's no need to apologize.
No, thank you.
Don't apologize for sharing your recovery story, because you don't.
Yeah, we do that here. That's fine.
Because you don't know who's watching and being silent in the chat.
Right.
There was a time when I was snorting 2 grams of coke every day, popping 10 to 15 perks every day, and smoking pot. And I would have a coffee royale. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but that's a coffee royale. That's coffee with 2 shots of whiskey inside.
Oh, we have those in New Orleans. We just call it coffee.
But there was a time when I fucking didn't want to live. I was pissed off. I was seeing every day.
Flo is right here. If he's giving you props, you are doing pretty good.
Yeah, if anything.
No, Shelby, you're absolutely not. You're fine.
I was going to say, if anything, I think you sharing at a more public setting is actually a sign of how far you've come in terms of like getting over what you're getting over. I think it's not a lot of people like to talk about that, especially guys. So I think it's actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
I'm open with my experience, strength, and hope.
Let's go.
I'm only here because of God. What's this?
Let's go. But yeah, this whole termination thing is it's like one of the worst topics. I freaking hate it, dude. And I know for the rest of probably the country's existence, it's always going to be a, something that is it a contention or brings contention? I forget the fucking word. We're gonna fight about it all the
A
time.
contentious
And
topic.
is just not getting pregnant in the first place an option is as part of the solution
I'm
at
with
all?
you, Jeff. You know,
Not
you go play
really.
hockey, you put on a helmet.
So even
It's
if you
Well,
plan
there are entire
pregnancy,
sections of the country who are basically against any kind of sex education, right? All they want is abstinence-only education. They don't want these
Still?
comprehensive.
I mean,
yes, absolutely.
at
In
the
all kinds
rates
of
that it
places.
was in our day.
So, Jeff, one thing that makes this whole thing difficult, if you had 100% rational actors at play and the only thing that was happening was consensual and only people were getting pregnant are ones who want to have babies, there would still be things like miscarriages, which still occurs for about 30% of women above the age of 30. It gets more and more as you get older. It's less likely to happen when you're younger, as they're more fertile and stuff like that. But as you get older, it's more and more common, and it's no one's real fault. A lot of times it's just the shape of their hips or what the 8-9 months ago did some sort of gene
Do they
selection.
count those as abortions if it's a miscarriage?
I was gonna say, what does this
Depends
have to do
on the
with-
circumstance and who you're talking to.
Right. Sometimes
what kind of-
miscarriages are incomplete.
So a miscarriage can happen if
Gotcha.
maybe I abuse myself in such a way by in taking a bunch of stuff to basically force myself to come to term, right? That doesn't happen all the time, right? Most people aren't out there doing it, but it does happen. In that case, it would be something classified differently. But there are horror stories from all sides of this, as far as people just going about their business. It's a fact of life. It's just our biology is really bad at this. Our heads are too big. Our hips are too narrow. It is what it is.
Hey,
Go ahead.
Coldy, to answer your statement, most states when they teach sex ed, or even if they're teaching about periods, I'm using that as an example, the parents have to give signed permission for the kid to go to those types of classes.
I somehow managed to learn about this stuff when my parents didn't sign on that
I didn't
stuff.
learn any of it.
But maybe it's because I grew up with the internet, so maybe
Right,
I
that's true.
had biology textbooks in my house, but my
I didn't
grandparents
even
were not
know to search
religious.
for it.
Didn't want me to do it because they felt it was inappropriate for the school to be talking to me about it. It frustrated me at the time. I understand as an adult, but I think that's probably on the adults around the kid. Probably first. Maybe you want to hear about sex from your parents before you hear about it from your gym teacher. I don't know. I don't know. Would you rather your kid learn about the birds and the bees from you first, or get some idea?
Well, as someone that didn't get it from the parents, it would have
Exactly.
helped
Most
me
people
to have
don't
heard
get
it
it from
from
parents.
somebody, even if it was the gym teacher, says like a backup or like a safety in case the parents.
I don't know what it was like for you guys, but it was mostly like, here's some deodorant because your kids are smelly now.
Well, no, that's just the thing.
Puberty.
Everybody in these
No,
conversations
nobody
seems
said
to
a
assume
peep.
that everybody has good parents. Like, not everybody does. Not
Well,
everybody. has
I
good
don't know
parents.
that it's. I think I had decent parents. I don't want it to be a reflection on the parenting style, just because like there could be reasons that they just don't get it from the parents without
we'll
it
extend
being
it to the
a
adults.
general
Adults,
statement
yeah.
about them as a
Your
parent.
caretakers. Would you rather caretakers talk to you about it? Would you rather caretakers tell you first or some stranger? I guess if you ask the kids, they probably want a stranger.
I would
But
want
as
the
caretakers of children, do you want to teach your kids this stuff before another person?
So I love my parents. They did the best they could, but I'm so glad that both of my parents talked to me about not just the birds and the bees, but like they talked to me about, like, for instance, if I went to a party and I drank, or I got a ride from someone who was going to be drinking or whatever to always call them. Yes, if I drank, I would have still paid the consequences for that behavior, but they would rather have
Be
me
angry,
call
yeah.
them
Mhm.
than me be dead. I'm just using that as an example. So
Yeah.
my parents, I mean, talked to me about the birds and the bees, drugs, alcohol, and yes, like some of my actions had consequences, but at least my parents and my grandparents allowed me to, and like my grandparents and parents could have done a lot better job. However, I'm also grateful that they left communication open to a degree regarding sex education, drugs, alcohol, that kind of stuff.
Well,
you
like-
know
like
Did they
in
give you the
my-
white talk?
The-
Like when you're driving and if you get stopped by the police?
The white talk.
Oh, the white
I
people
don't-
don't get
Yeah, you got to
to
make
talk.
sure that they see your face if you're white, so they know to.
so they can
not-
wave you
yeah,
through.
Yeah,
See,
exactly.
my mom
You got
and
to pull back the hoodie.
The
Right.
good
mom-
news is for everyone, the teen pregnancies are actually going down, as well as kids having sex in general.
That's what I was
gender
about
alpha,
to say.
going down. So this is something.
They
This
hate
is a
each other.
celebration for all the pro-lifers, all the pro-choicers. Inappropriate sexual relationships are on the downturn, so that's actually a good thing. We should be celebrating that.
So is
Inappropriate.
men's testosterone levels,
there's
which are down
there's always a silver
30%.
lining.
How about that?
My mom and stepdad gave me the same talk about sex and drugs and alcohol. But as I got older and I got to be a teenager and in grade 9, I said, "Fuck this, man! I'm going to do some experimentation," and fuck, I fucking.
So you had the information and you just
I had the information that my mom and stepdad taught me right from wrong, but and I'm like, fuck this, man. I'm in grade 9 in high school. I'm gonna smoke a joint, see how this shit is, and then it all just fucking spiraled out of control after that. And my sex ed teacher in high school was my gym teacher as well. Figure that shit out.
My first sex ed talk was because I was watching The Lion King as like a 6-year-old kid, and I asked my grandparents, like, "Wait, isn't Nala Simba's like cousin or something, or sister or something?" I didn't understand. So my grandparents had explained to me how that worked, and that led
Kissing
into
cousins.
how did they do it at 6 years old?
Well, they just explained to me that lions are different than humans, right? And so like they just said, well, you're right. Yeah, Nala is like probably his brother.
It's okay. Lions
or
fuck their
something.
cousins all the time.
But humans don't do that. I was like, oh, okay. It's like, so what do we do? Oh, well, when a man loves a woman, they make love. Gave me just like a very generic thing. I was very young, so I wasn't like grossed out by it or anything. But I remember.
But see, my stepdad had the same conversation with me, but he used it in because my stepdad worked at Chrysler's and he was a mechanic on the side, so he would say, "Now men have a car and women have the garage. And when he parks the car in the garage, gas leaks out. God."
Did you know what he was talking about? Did that make sense?
My mom, I can remember this like it was yesterday. My mom was standing at the fucking my bedroom door and she's just shaking her head, going, "What are you fuck?" Just he's not an idiot. Fucking explain it to him, right? Don't fucking talking price or mechanic terms.
If any of you guys are concerned about how kids who don't have a lot of support structures, such as like being in foster care, how they learn about sex ed, they actually learn about it earlier than a lot of other kids, because a lot of these adoption agencies have to tell the kids who are living, 10 kids in a foster house, yeah, you can't be having your teenagers can't be boinking and stuff like that. So they kind of have to know earlier than not.
Boinking? Did you just say boinking?
Scromping.
There is no control over when kids are.
Oh, they tell them. I'm just saying they tell them.
Getting
There's
sex ed
information.
now.
We
They
don't
get
live
it.
in
They
the-
get so young from other kids.
Right, and the
internet.
like the Lion King at 6 years old. How would the gender people present that at 6 with using
Oh God, I don't know.
lions or
I don't
something.
pretend to know.
It's not just about the birds and the bees anymore. It's about all kind of other stuff.
Right?
Yeah, I'm not so worried about
The flowers and the trees.
my future children, because I mean I'll probably introduce Lion King to them someday too, and explain to them how things work with the circle of life. But I'm
Hey,
not worried about kids not getting information about sex. Now,
I was clueless. Nobody said shit to me. It caught me all by surprise, and I had to figure it all out by myself.
I
Or
remember.
ask my friends, the
I
few
remember
that I
back-
can open up
And
to
that's
about
the whole
that.
reason why sex ed exists, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of parents don't have those conversations. A lot of them are
Right.
not equipped to have
I'm
those
not
conversations. A lot of them
anti-sex ed
simply
at
have
all.
beliefs that will stop them from having those conversations. You know,
I remember back in high school
my
watching
gym teacher
those.
should be the best person to tell me that before my.
I remember back in school in sex ed watching those 60s and 70s fucking sex PSI movies or those public service announcement fucking movies.
Oh yeah.
Like fuck, like
Was that when they put the condom on the banana?
like it's the fucking like it's the
Fuck
90s.
yeah.
Why are we watching these 60s and 70s PSA?
Was it a
Fucking-
film strip?
Yeah, like I remember watching these fucking 60s and 70s anti-drug movies in grade school. These fucking
Take care, Caldy.
like fuck reefer madness and shit. This
I'll
is what
just
happens.
say that if you don't teach your kids, someone else is going to teach them, and they're probably going to learn about it on their own if they have access to internet, and they're going to learn about the wrong things if they, especially young boys.
Also, come on, Caldy.
Maybe.
Caldy
not.
just said he's from Mississippi, like literally one of the top states with the highest teen pregnancy rate because they stress abstinence-only education so much.
Yeah,
You know-
yeah,
That
Shelby.
just happens to be but you can also say that they're because they're more religious, they're more likely to have kids.
Yeah, Shelby,
Well,
the
they have-
overhead projector. Fuck, what a
I remember
fucking
those,
trip
yeah.
that shit was. God, I miss those overhead projectors. I should see if Amazon sells them or if I can get one.
You know what? You guys are gonna think this is typical, but one of my closest friends in high school, she and I did not go to the same high school, but we attended the same youth group, and she had absolutely no idea what a period was until she started her period at the age of 15, because her parents thought she was too young to know about it even at 15. And she also asked me what the point of having a period is. So it's like a lot of religious people, doesn't matter if it's Mississippi or Washington or California or Texas, kids are gonna ask their friends, especially kids who grow up in a religious home.
Yep.
That's where I had to turn. Was my friends.
Here's little Jeff asking his friends, "What's sex like?"
Oh, I can't even tell that story on stream. It was even more graphic and detailed than that. But
I can't even imagine being a kid and having the internet. Like, it would have changed everything.
I remember when we just had the Commodore 64 and floppy disks, no internet.
Well, yeah, I grew up just as the internet was coming on, so we had like the 28K and then the 56K dial-up. So like, your mom or your dad would pull the phone and try to make a call.
I mean,
and knock
sure,
you
yeah,
off
we
the
had
internet.
90s internet. 90s internet
Yeah.
was something, but not like
And you had the lines going
not like
across
what
the picture.
it became in the
would take 5 minutes to
2000s,
load.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Hey,
I remember-
I actually watched porn at that level, just at least photos, but it would take like 5 minutes for it to load.
Scan
And it's
lines
like,
coming down.
yeah, so you're just like, yeah, just wasn't
Hey,
appealing.
I hate to do this, but I gotta get up early in the morning
Me
due
too.
to the fact
oh
I
yeah,
gotta
no problem.
I gotta take him to the vet. I gotta take this little cutie.
Billy, what's wrong with him?
It's just he gets now that he's a senior and he also has beginning stages of kidney disease. I just gotta
Oh.
take him in every 6 6 months to get blood work done to make sure he's continuing to stay healthy. I mean, I
the
found that
kidneys always go in those older cats.
Yeah,
my
that's
last
how we
cat,
lost our
yeah, my
cats.
last cat kidneys went.
Yep.
I found out before he became officially a senior, so it's been every 6 months for a good 3 years now.
Well, I hope you get a good checkup, Billy.
Yeah.
He
Sure.
will, because he's been eating his kidney food. He'll probably be told, or I would be told,
So you're
that
gonna go eat it now.
he eats too much. He's about 16 pounds.
Old man Bill.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll
right.
talk to you. I'll see you guys later, and I hope
Have a good
nobody's.
night.
I hope I didn't offend anybody.
Why? That's that agreeableness. That's that
Yeah.
female agreeableness.
Don't worry about offending anybody. Just free speech. Fuck.
What are you gonna do if you offended somebody? Let's pretend you did. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I'm offended.
Apologize.
Why? For your opinions? All right. Good night. Take care.
It's okay.
You
You're
know
a good
what?
person.
Hey Jeff, I love your candor, and I love how you're just like, who gives a flying fuck?
Mm-hmm.
I only have the one setting, so I'm glad somebody likes it, appreciates it.
Same.
But the thing is, like if people were direct like you, then there wouldn't be as many issues in the world.
I agree. I happen to agree. I love when I can find people like B.
Anyway, I will see you. Oh, and I'm gonna message you on Facebook in the next couple of days to let you know what the results of that autism testing I got.
Oh yeah, okay. Great.
So bye.
Take care.
I remember talking about things that we remember. I remember going to the video store, and in the back, you go into a room and there'd be all kinds of porn VHS tapes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The little room where you had to show your ID.
Exactly. Well, didn't they have like little almost like porta potties or little bathrooms, but they were like.
My friend worked at an adult bookstore that had all that.
They had
What,
like a
you're
little
talking
area you
about
put a
a
curtain
sex
around.
theater?
Yeah, you just put a curtain around you and then do your thing.
That's super old school. That's
it was like a
they used to have
labyrinth, and
those
they had all
way
these
back in the
garbage
day, probably before
bags
I was
hanging on
born.
the walls, covering things.
Can you imagine walking in those rooms with a black light? What you would find? Oh my god!
Fuck that, man. I got like 4 Rubbermaid bins of VHS tapes from when I was a kid.
Yeah, I still have some of mine. Well, not the porn ones, but
Including the Godfather collection on VHS.
I had a whole bunch of stuff I recorded off of TV during the Gen X days, and I got rid of it, and I wish I had kept it now.
God,
Because people are archiving that stuff.
that was an art, including taping songs off the radio and stopping the
Yeah.
tapes before the
Oh,
commercial started.
All over
That was a science. Fuck. I
I've
still got all
always been a huge pirate, all the way
I
back
still-
into
I
the
still
cassette
got-
tape days.
Yep.
I still got all my mixtapes, man. Seriously, Milli Vanilli, Vanilla Ice, MC Hammer. Fuck. I should start my own pirate radio station, like the movie with Christian Slater back in the day.
Milli Vanilli. Everybody remember that day when you found out Milli Vanilli was fake?
Oh yeah, I was heartbroken. No, I'm kidding. I wasn't fucking heartbroken. Fuck.
I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Turns out they weren't even singers. They were just like models that they hired in Europe.
Oh, that duo. Remember that cat video she did? What the fuck was it called?
With the animated cat.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Paula Abdul did a cat video with or the music video with
Yeah, vaguely remember. Oh my god. Yeah, let me look that up. What's that
with
about?
an animated freaking cat. Yeah,
Wait, wasn't there a Billy Ocean song with an animated character in it too?
I think so. God, Genesis and those puppets freak me out, man.
Opposites attract.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
The only song she did that I liked was Straight Up Now, Tell Me, Do You Really Want to Love
Straight
Me?
up now, baby. How men are so visual.
I should see if
I'm
they still.
I'm visual and auditory. I'm very auditory too. Or what are women? Is it auditory as opposed to visual, or emotional, like sentiment?
Parallel processing.
Okay, translate that for us.
Yeah.
Social situations are very complex. It requires a lot of processing power. So
Yeah, I agree
between
with
your
that.
two hemispheres, so that's what they're focusing on. You're focusing with your left brain, most likely.
Which is visual.
More verbal. Since
Yeah,
you're more
that's what
articulate.
I'm more auditory.
Yeah.
I'm not very visual at all,
Yeah.
actually. But when it comes to attraction, the visual element is important. Like my eye notices it.
It's reflexive. It's so quick. Yeah. I linked you a couple journals there if you ever want to read into.
Yeah,
it. Those are just some open source ones that I wasn't just bullshitting. It's been what I've been saying. Maybe it'd be a good topic for later. I could bring up some more survey of the literature. I could go through.
Yeah, I want to do that one on men's suicide too.
Oh yeah. So I talked to my wife about that. She's a little weary about it, mostly because of the impact it has on her. She has a hard time talking about it. It's kind of why she shifted out of suicide research in the first place, because
That's interesting that even women or a woman finds it hard to talk about, because men definitely do.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And it doesn't take away from her understanding of the topic, but yeah.
Well, that topic is definitely. I mean, you can never say that it's inherently one gender or the other, but by the statistics, it's definitely much more of a kind of male conversation.
But it's something like men succeed more, women attempt it more. So it's definitely both genders that are
really
experiencing the ideation.
Well, see, the thing is the methods in which men use are a lot more brutal, so their outcomes are a lot better.
It takes an enormous amount of violence to succeed.
Right. It's the literature on this is very. It sort of converges with the discussion we're having with the pregnancy termination. Actually, the same cofactors that go into male depression also seem
financial.
What's very weird about it is, think of the state of the world in which we live in. Say you're born today in like North America. From a 30,000 foot up perspective looking down, you would think this is the most prosperous, wealthiest, most technologically advanced nation to ever exist on the planet Earth. Okay, you might be able to make some sort of case like that, right? Or at least within a few generations of that picture, right? Not so distant that people aren't around who might have actually fulfilled that picture. Yet at the same time, we do have silent killers, right? Such as suicide, and it's a very difficult topic to research because unfortunately, we can't make a lot of predictions about things.
Just talk to men.
Yeah. Well, what's really sad is one of the things that has come out is when Robin Williams died.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the last big leap forward in suicide research, because there was this copycat phenomenon. So one thing that my wife did with one of her research groups was they actually made public policy advocacy for the specific thing for media to stop doing. So one of the things that they did, at least in the Southwest, is news affiliates, when they learn about someone's passing, you don't have to tell the specifics about how they did it, because there's always, it's never going to be in a place you can touch. But when Robin Williams passed away, there was a huge surge in people doing the exact same thing using the same methods. And so now that it's a study phenomenon, whenever a high profile person dies or even
So censor information.
it's not the no. It's
people are natural followers.
No. So you don't have to put it. You don't have to put it in the headline, right?
Oh, in the headline, but it can still be in the article, or they can still mention it in the story.
Right. To me, the argument is like by doing that, because people look up to people for whatever reason, celebrity, whatever, by putting that headline out there, some people will take it as a form of validation of their choices to do it.
Right. People with pre-existing mental health issues to begin with that are probably not receiving care.
Well, the whole inside of that research came from a different topic. It had to do with clickbait, right? And why is clickbait so successful, especially when it comes to like news sources? People read the bolded letter text. So and so did this thing. So and so is indicted. Whatever, right? And they'll take that as the story, right? So we generate all these narratives because of all the information we collect passively and sometimes less passively. So the suicide researchers said, could you just maybe not put it in the headline how they passed? You could say they passed away. You could put it in the...
Instead of Robin Williams offs himself.
Yeah, well, not just that, but Robin Williams off himself by hanging himself, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't even put that in the headline. Like even my instinct would tell me don't put that in the headline.
Your instinct is correct because it's a moral one, but people, if you want clicks on your thing.
Right? Oh, right.
Right. Exactly. So we have those like incentives.
I would put let Robin's dead. Click here to find out how.
Right, and that's okay. So a lot of news sources do that. Another weird one, and I've talked to you about this, Jeff. This is going to surprise people probably in here, but there's now enough research to show that if you put up a sign, like a billboard in a city, for people to get help for suicide or if they need to talk to someone, that kind of thing, when you do that, there's a measurable increase in people obviously using the services because they're more aware of it, but then also actual harm, which is very counter-notional and counterintuitive. There's a couple explanations. The first explanation is they don't have enough manpower to deal with all the people using the services. And I think that's a fair argument, right? That's a fair argument to make. Like if you're going to open up a all-you-can-eat buffet, you got to have enough food, right?
There's other issues too, as someone that's worked inside of those.
Yeah.
One of those.
And then two, one has to do with the training, the quality of people doing it, but then also the services not being used properly by people have a different idea what the service is used for, so on and so forth. They can't get to everyone. There's a number of issues. It's sort of like inviting trouble in a way. I mean, you want the trouble. You want people to call, right? And they're not arguing you shouldn't do that. But what they're saying is that maybe don't put up a billboard because there's something associated with the billboard that's causing harm. And it's like, wait, shouldn't we be talking about this?
And what small percentage of highly suggestible people? Like, I don't think that we reduce the experience for everything else to protect these mentally fragile, highly suggestible people that are probably a fraction of the population. I don't set the bar there. I set the bar for the up here for the people that are actually going to actualize themselves.
Right. So I think one of the theories, the working theories they have now, is sort of like that method thing again, right? So if you see signs that say
that's that safetyism,
these are public, these are researchers trying to figure this out. It's like, okay, so if us putting up a sign is going to cause harm, should we come up a thing, or are we actually misreading this situation? Are we just is this a statistical thing that we're just accounting for now? So there's a lot of arguments, but one of the main ones on the other side for the people who are not wanting to put up the signs or to pull them down completely is they need more resources. They need more training. They need more whatever, right? Funding.
I'm still trying to understand why the signs cause it. I thought it was like the suggestibility of it. Like
it's kind of like
this. Plants the idea of suicide or activates the idea.
The way, from what I understand, the people who are the ones that need this sort of help, the fact that they're seeing it out and about sort of validates their demons in a way. Some people are struggling, and if all they see in their perceptions are things that are highly negative, right? Including that, then all of a sudden, oh wow, I really am going through this, I should go through the efforts to fulfill. It's like a self-fulfilled prophecy, kind of. I'm not trying to belittle.
Do you know the rates of what the people? Well, I guess we can't really tell what's.
Depends where
they're
it is,
successful.
But this is what was surprising to researchers, because they thought, let's put up more. We have all this funding. Let's put up. We have resources. We need to talk to people. We need them to call us in. But when they started putting signs up, the outcomes that they were measuring before, after, and during were increasing, and they could test it because they look at other areas where they didn't put up signs, where you look at the same demographics, the same socioeconomic backgrounds. So it was like, Jesus, are we causing more harm than good by putting this damn thing up? It was measurable in a way like the copycat thing was. So it's tricky. It's very tricky, because one way you want to have the services for people, right? You absolutely want the.
Yeah, I'm not walking on eggshells for that little small part of
Right.
society that hijacks everything else with their fragility.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough, because the people who get the funding for this have to prove results and stuff too. So their funding is tied to the outcome.
But it's still inferential, right? Like there's nothing concrete to like, because we don't know why people are deleting themselves.
Right.
We don't know if it's because they saw a billboard.
That's why the research is very, very difficult. So there are different camps of thought on that. That's why I'm trying to say it's not a clear-cut issue. I haven't seen conclusive evidence that it's a bad thing to have the resources available. I think it's mostly positive, actually. But what concerns me is in high population centers where there are these upticks in attempts and actual, follow through on these kind of things. And I can't help but notice that. But same time, I'm kind of with you morally. Like, why should society contort itself in such a way? It's sort of unhealthy. I want to live in a world where we don't have to have signs up for that kind of thing, but that's utopian, right? So I'm not sure what the public policy side should do on this. And it is freaking difficult. They can't figure it out. No one can figure it out. What exactly is doing this? Because the research subjects are fleeting, as you can probably imagine, for circumstances, right? So even doing any sort of ethical study or producing one for an IRB is fucking difficult, to say the least.
And you said there really hasn't been much of it since Robin Williams?
No, as far as copycat stuff?
No, I mean research.
Oh, there's been lots of suicide research, but that was one of the most powerful things that has come from the field in the last decade or so, right? As far as, okay, what can we do to maybe stop specific things from happening? I guess, is there a way to do this, right? Should we be doing this? Should we be interfering? Should we just be observing? Should we be treating something else? Should we be treating the pond and not the fish? That kind of thing.
Are they talking to
guy
people
from,
that
Lincoln Park
actually
hit people really
experiences
hard, too.
suicidal ideation?
Sorry, say it again, Jeff.
No, go ahead.
No, what was your?
I'm just. Are they talking to? They seem very remote from suicide. Are they talking to people that have actually experienced suicidal ideation, and the people around them that love them and have helped them and know how to support? Are they talking to the people on the ground in the experience? Because everything you're describing, everything that they're coming up with, the way of thinking, seems like somebody so removed from the situation that they really have no familiarity with it in a subjective sense.
I can't speak for all of them, but I can speak for like what my wife was doing recently at Hopkins. She was essentially trying to conduct interviews with families of kids, minors, who have recently attempted or planned to or were being held against their will, or even sent there voluntarily by their parents. It's so hard to talk to a parent who's had the worst day in their life about, what do you think the reasons are for your child for wanting to do this, right? Yeah. So it's
because it's the wrong approach. First of all,
there's a lot of multifaceted approaches. So there's like the public policy side stuff, as far as, okay, how we get enough funds for this particular project or whatever, yada yada yada. There's the social psychologist, right? There's the sociologist. There's the health people.
But the people doing the actual interviews, conducting.
Sometimes they're clinical psychologists. Sometimes they're they have psychiatric backgrounds.
Right.
Sometimes they're social
I think if there's
workers.
enough of a disconnect there, they're not going to get the data they need from that person, because that person's not going to
Yeah,
be able to
one
open
of
up
the
and
things.
deliver it in a way that's meaningful.
So yeah, that's extremely difficult, because just because you're a clinician doesn't mean you're trained on things like survey design or questionnaires. So statisticians in general are good at that, and some social scientists, not all, can specialize in that. So one of the things that my wife did, she's really good at survey design. So she could put together a scientific survey that could be used in a number of different settings, right? So one of those things might be like a questionnaire, right? And so with questionnaires, you need a lot of people to answer them under certain circumstances. Otherwise, they're not scientifically valid. And even then, there's still problems. It's like the best solution. It's like the worst possible way to approach certain things, because on a, let's say, psychiatric level, say someone's treating a child or is attending to them who's had either an attempt or is having feelings of that, they're going to approach that problem completely different. And in fact, they're not thinking about your research that you're trying to do. They're thinking about, how do I help this kid? And that kid may have a specific circumstance that's driving to that. It could be biological. It could be, things beyond what a questionnaire can do. So trying to get all these different public policies, things to sort of converge on a single goal is exceedingly difficult. Psychology, sociology, it's damning. There are a lot of people trying to do good work, but a lot of the work is just poor quality because of the design of the work. It's not.
And partly I think it's the wrong tool for the wrong job.
I agree with you to a big extent, as far as a lot of it is kind of probably more harmful than helpful, because we get down these sort of the wrong path epistemologically.
Or I don't even know if harmful, but I don't think it's going to get them what they're trying to find out.
Well,
like,
let me
put me in there on the front lines talking to these suicidal people, and I'll get them a pretty clear sense of what's going on.
Let me get to what I was talking about by harmful. By harmful, I should have actually used a different word. I should have said misleading us into a false sense of understanding what's actually happening, opposed to having a grounded approach on individuals. So in these big cities, a city is a complex system, right? It's one of the most difficult things to conceptually understand from any point of view, no matter what kind of social scientist you are. And if you're trying to understand human behavior within that, and within that a subcontext that's not normal, right? Of course it's going to be difficult. Of course you're going to be led astray. Of course there's not going to be enough money in the world to figure out what kind of problem you're trying to solve. So what's the solution? I think it's probably more local. It's probably more psychoanalytic. Personally, I think it's more one-on-one.
Yeah, go talk to the people who are experiencing the problem. That's where I would start, is with the problem.
It is, oh God, it is hard. Even to design the type of...
That's not how you talk to these people. Mm-hmm. You don't do it through a study or a questionnaire.
Yes, but say the APA, for instance, let's say they put out standards of care or something for... Do poetics? I don't know. Maybe.
Wasn't Lewis Carroll a mathematician?
Oh yeah, he was. He was more of like a logician. He's more of like a logician, but yeah, close enough. He did some Bayesian. Yeah, I guess so. He did some probability theory. So yeah, he counts. Okay. Anyways, I forgot what I was saying. I was going on about best intentions, but lack of results and potential misunderstandings of things.
Yeah, and like using questionnaires and these.
Yeah, just so you know, Jeff, this isn't like all the funding is going to this. No, it's a sub context, because none of the real research being done is actually having a really strong impact. I cited the thing about the news source thing, about like not posting. Maybe don't put in the headline that Robin Williams hung himself. If you're going to say he committed suicide, put it in the actual thing if you can help it.
is any of the resources going to the people on the ground trying to help with the problem? Because if the goal is to understand a problem in order to solve it and direct resources to a solution, the solution is already happening. Like, we could definitely use more resources directed to it. Even like if the waiting on the research is the only thing holding that back, they can start that flow now, because we have solutions, even if we can't translate them into the language of soft science.
Yeah,
people are out there that are able to be effective in helping to reduce suicide.
There is an approach that obviously it's sort of low hanging, but it's actually in line with what you're saying. It's like, okay, find people who are actually successful with talking to people who are having
they're called peers,
ideas, right? So you may have a clinician who's really good at what they do. Let's say they're a talk therapist or something, and they've dealt with they've had a huge caseload of people who struggle with this kind of stuff. Well, you have the eggheads like me or my wife go in there and try to understand what exactly is that makes this person special. Not necessarily the people he's talking to, but the clinician. Like, what is he doing that's so different, right? And what you find is that these exceptional people, they're not always able to even articulate what they do, because it's sort of jazzy in a way.
Yeah, it's an art.
There's as much art there in the conversation as much as there is science, right? And so where those things converge is very difficult. So I can appreciate that from a humanistic standpoint. Or
I'm one of the people that I can do my thing with the people and sit with a scientist and translate it into his language as well. Like, I can help bridge that gap. So if there's enough people like me, we might be able to help there.
Yeah. So I'm not saying get more time, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because of the fact that people are so interested in this and they're devoting so many resources that
we run into this, like people like Shelby and I run into this when we work in these clinical settings, because we're supposed to be there kind of as the voice of the client or the patient, and we're supposed to bridge between their clinical expertise and all the like intuitive artistic stuff that we're noticing. But the same as you're describing, they don't know how to incorporate our voice, our perspective. Like, we try to communicate it, but it doesn't make its way into the clinical picture. They don't know how to incorporate it.
One metaphor I like to use for people to understand this is like, if you, let's say you were to ask, let's say Michael Jordan, like he's really good at shooting basketball, right? And after the game, you ask, hey, that last 3-pointer, can you describe to me the exact physics of what you just did there, how you made the shot? He would look at you kind of funny. He's like, I just shot the thing, right? Well, with thousands and thousands of hours of, let's say, talk therapists speaking to their clients or patients, they have a certain thing about them that makes them special, and that's why they succeed. So, like a good example, I have a friend who is a psychotherapist, and he can appreciate this because he's one of the best in his field. So he gets to teach other people how to be a better psychotherapist. And a big part of it just comes from experience and whatever makes him special. There's certain qualities about him that allows him to do what he does. Just because they have the same title or just because they have the same credentials doesn't mean they're as successful as him at what he does.
See, you guys are talking about this, and someone who has actually struggled with that and had some tough love in his life, and I'm 50-50. Like, I'm from the old school where, you know what, it's just a cry for help. It's self-pity. Things will get better tomorrow. Just pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and look forward to tomorrow. Then I'm also at the other thing where, you know what, to handle that person with kid gloves. Am I making sense?
Oh, you mean like in your approach towards somebody else?
Yeah, my approach, yeah. Like,
yeah.
I just find it to be helpful to just be very realistic and not.
I mean, if someone calls me and says, Derek, I'm going to do myself in. Okay, well, what's the underlying issue why you want to do that, And if they say, well, I'm just tired of life, I would say, listen, pick yourself up, brush yourself off, be a fucking man.
That might not be the right approach in that particular moment. there is a soft skill, and that's some of what they try to like transmit in the trainings too.
Be a
One of the ones
man,
is to
and if
make
you're
them
gonna
not
do it, just
literally
do
make
it.
them not feel one. So
See, that's
I'm not kidding. When I was in Louisiana, I was like in my 20s. I called the suicide hotline there, and this black girl answered, and I said, "Hi, I'm feeling suicidal," and she's like, "So, what you want me to do?" And it was so shocking that it snapped me out of my suicidal, because I could not believe I was hearing this from the suicide hotline. And I'm like,
So?
okay, I'm not going to try this at all. If this is the support set up for it, I need to just leave suicide alone.
yeah,
That's
so
funny.
I would
She
have
did you a favor.
para history. One of the things that they have found, this is something that is actually you've probably seen this in your trainings, Jeff, to uncatastrophize their situation by allowing them to understand that they're not the only person who is going through that. So when we say be a man, be by yourself kind of thing, it may actually be the exact opposite thing. They might need to hear that you're not the only person in the world suffering, and
The only man.
you're not.
going
And
through this.
I'm not saying I don't agree with being a man in other situations, but this is
And
sort of
Nathan,
like,
I can kind of bridge that gap between toughness and empathy, because in my research and what I've seen, it's mostly a cry for help. You know what I mean?
I can understand that.
I don't know if I'm cutting.
But I mean, I would rather talk to somebody that's actually
Most people don't really want to leave.
No.
Because
And
the
I'm just
people that are serious about it, you're not even going to know. Like, they're not going to tell anybody. They're not going to show sign. And one day you're just going to find out that they did it. And that they've been thinking about it for years.
And the reason I'm old school with that is because I've actually been in treatment centers myself, and I've said I'm just gonna off myself, blah blah blah, and they've said, Derek, you're just in self pity, get over it, pick yourself up, you're good, you know. I mean, it was that. I mean, I'm old school recovery where, you know, self pity is a killer.
Well, so is suicide. Suicidal ideation.
Well, I'll try to see if I
think
can.
more of a killer.
Maybe I'll have my wife watch part of the stream to see if I can convince her to come on, and maybe she can articulate a little more of the stuff that she knows more about. Of course, I'm speaking through secondhand knowledge. Right. I'm not an expert on the topic, but I do have a cursory.
Or if she doesn't want to be public and wants to do a private stream or a Discord chat too, that's an option as well.
Right. It is a little hard for her, but maybe she could talk about the male masculinity angle, because that's what she did her thesis on. So.
Oh yeah, well that'd be great.
Well, it was an unattended find, actually. The fact that they were able to determine, because of a sentiment analysis, the majority of men on /r suicide were indeed men and not women. At least they can make a safe assumption. In the same way that you ever get like a weird ad on a website and you're like, how did it know that I like this thing based on my clicks?
I got one today about echoing the bunny man, and we were talking about them the other day.
She was able to use basically the same kind of idea, same technique basically, to determine the gender of every single, the likelihood that people were male or female, even though they were anonymous. And then the undercurrent there, as far as what the actual emotions associated with their despair, again, I think I told you off stream, it was financial insecurity, as it is, and what they posit from a sociological standpoint is as it's tied to status, because it's not just money itself, it's like money, status.
It's the lobster brain or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Jordan Peterson talks about that like our drive for status is more powerful and relevant than we realize.
Sociologists would never say that, because that's called biological essentialism. And
well, biology does matter. Do sociologists have they dumbed down so much that they no longer think biology is even a factor?
I kind of tease her friends a little bit, because her friends are all getting a little, well, on the ding thing. I'll do a little ding here. Explain it. So one of her friends called me a biological essentialist a couple years ago, right? About how she's gonna be free and never get married and stuff like that. She wants a baby so bad right now. She wants a baby so bad, and she's trying to get married. And I'm like, what happened to that biological essentialism you were telling me about? But yeah, it's interesting. The literature is vast. It's kind of some of it's not very deep. But
yeah, I would
it's
love to
insightful.
explore it one day.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I did send you her thesis if you ever want to look at it.
Yeah,
too.
I can work it up as a short topic and at least introduce it.
Yeah, sure. She would probably like that.
Well, I guess we can start winding down. Does anybody have any closing thoughts they want to leave us with?
There are no thoughts in this brain.
No. Okay. Sometimes that's well. You act. Sometimes you act like there is. All right. Well, once again, thanks for hanging out, everybody. I'll do it again.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, closing thoughts are if you're feeling that kind of way, if you're feeling like you can't handle life, talk to somebody, and hopefully you talk to somebody that says, "Well, get over it, man. We're all depressed. Like, pull your fucking, grab yourself by the bootstraps and
Send them to the
fucking."
Pedalverse. They could all be depressed together.
In fact,
But,
hopefully they just slap you right in the face, and then it just wakes you up, and you're like, "What? What am I doing?" And then you continue on with your life.
This could be your life. Shelby, I didn't realize because I thought there was stuff like that out there. But if there truly is not, I'm serious when I say send them here. Like we could at least figure out some kind of resource for them in their area. Information referral, we used to call it.
Oh, that's something maybe I could do.
Beak, thank you so much. Very much appreciate it. Thank you.
My wife actually has a bunch of those resources too. If you ever, Jeff, if you need something like that.
Yeah.
Let me
Because
know.
I can like usually Google specific areas and help people.
She has access to other stuff though. Like that might be.
We should start a little like resource database or something, like information sharing resource something. That would be helpful. And if we grow and start in-person chapters, we could have like in-person little support groups for people too. Right, talk to fear. Yeah, I don't understand this though, because nobody can make you do any of this if you don't participate. Like you have to internalize some things for this to happen, and you're like again, agency is part of the cognitive process. Like if you're an adult and you don't know how to ask for something, that's on you. Or you don't know how to speak up for something, that's on you. That's that self-advocacy that we talk about in.
Don't mind me. I'm just frying up some eggs and bacon right now.
Oh, that sounds good. I'm gonna
I should have stuck with cooking
Great
when
conversation, guys.
I should have stuck with cooking when I got my papers to cook. Fuck.
Y'all have a great night. Appreciate y'all.
You too.
Oh yeah, you too. Very much.
Take care.
Take care. All right. Well, Derek, you enjoy your breakfast there.
I will. It's almost 3 a.m. here, but I'm fucking hungry.
3 a.m. breakfast.
I was so busy yesterday that I never ate nothing. All I had was a blueberry bagel with cream cheese. That's all.
Oh my God, that happens to me all the time. I forget to eat.
So yeah, I fucking. So I mean, I fast 2 days a week. So.
Intentionally or accidentally?
Intentionally, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So.
All right. Well, take care.
You too, my man.
We'll see you next time. Or
see you next time.
Next time we see you.
Of course.
Effigy, you have anything? Not very animated tonight.
Yeah, sorry, I'm distracted working on stuff while I'm talking with you guys.
Oh, that's fine. But we're also a body doubling channel.
Yeah, just I think everything that was said tonight was so good. That was mainly just listening. I was enjoying it. I didn't think I had anything better to add than what was already being spoken. But yeah, if you know anyone who even jokes about those kind of things, it's usually some kind of cry for help. Be that person to reach out. That simple kind of thing can usually stop someone's tumble down that darker path. And it's like we said, the people who are really, really, really dead set on doing it, there's almost nothing you can do. But the ones who wave a flag about it, just go and help. Like I've personally saved many of my friends in my 20s because I hung around with a lot of like edge of society kind of people, counterculture kind of people. That was just my crowds back then. Freak Show Alley, as we were called,
Oh, I
on
had no
LSU's
idea.
campus.
And you got bougie.
I would say that I'm still just that
You
boy from the
sold
trailer
out,
park.
man.
Yeah, just take care of each other. Everybody's going through a struggle. They can call it a journey, but it's always just a struggle.
And don't be afraid to talk to, if you see those flags or even think you see them, don't be afraid to talk to the person.
Absolutely.
If you're a friend and you're close to them, you already have that relationship.
One of the things that's just the worst thing about the world, and what keeps getting worse and worse, is that people have this kind of like dark idea in their head that other human beings are default standoffish and possibly violent or going to be just completely negative toward them. And that's a lot of the times it's not the case. I find most people to be just as starved for human interaction as everyone, especially post pandemic. So just, don't be afraid to talk to somebody. You never know.
Yeah, unless they're introverts, they can get nasty and hostile.
Stay away. But
he's right. I agree with everything Effigy said. And that doesn't happen often here. So.
But yeah, fun conversation. And you have a good night, Jeff.
You too. Take care. Nathan?
Oh, hey, yeah. I was feeling loquacious tonight, so I figured I'd come in and chat with you a little bit since you invited me so many times.
I like having loquacious people around here. Articulate and loquacious.
Yeah, I kind of felt like I was taking over a little bit, though. I'm sorry about that.
No, have you seen? Do you watch this stream?
Sometimes during the day, if I'm doing chores or doing work, I'll plug in just for a second. To see
you were a worthy addition.
Oh, thanks.
So no, don't feel bad about that at all. I appreciate it.
I better not.
Hopefully we do it again.
Panel.
Yeah, well, if enough people like you show up, you and Joe and even Effigy and we can drive out the drama with intelligent conversation. Drama doesn't stick around for that. I don't know if you notice the numbers when we're having this, but versus drama. But the drama usually doesn't stick around when it gets too nerdy.
Oh, was that being nerdy?
We all were.
A little bit, actually.
Yeah, this is like a half nerd, half drama channel, and I'm learning to find that balance. Well, so tonight I think it was very nice balance.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to misrepresent myself or anyone or anything like that. Just some of these topics I'm pretty familiar with. So I can pontificate quite a bit.
Well, I appreciate it, and hopefully we get to see you again.
Yeah. I'll check you out later. Have a good night.
You too. Take care very much. Alrighty. Well, I have to say that was a pretty good episode. I sure enjoyed it. I think we. Thank you. Jeez. When I started this, these were my peeps, believe it or not, before when I started this, and that's the kind of people I thought the panel was going to be made of. It was going to be men's mental health. It was going to be intelligent people having deep dive conversations about issues related to mental health, and then the panelverse happened. And I'm learning now why. Going back through my life and watching movies like Slacker and thinking about my time in Vegas and how I grew up. There's no way I could not have ended up in the panelverse, but it changed the stream in many ways, in a good way. I would not want to go back and choose differently. But now it's learning how to merge what I thought my channel was going to be versus what it has become, and I think it has the potential to be something even better than I originally set out. But the conversations we've been having lately and the people that have been showing up is very much what I was originally trying to attract. And I've said this over and over and over again, I am very happy that I got the audience I did. despite my efforts to get a different one. So thank you all. Keep being. Like maybe it's my own bubble that I'm trapped in, but I think I have one of the best audiences on YouTube. I absolutely love the people that come here. That's one reason I stay here, I think. Besides all the friction that happens when I try to go on other panels, I miss my audience. I'm like, yeah, I can go to other panels, but it's not going to be my audience. I'm just spoiled for them. So thank you all, and keep doing whatever you do. It's working. All right, I'm gonna probably go hang out in Discord and wind the night down, and then I'll be back tomorrow, which I believe is Friday, in real world time. In panel time, it's just another panel. So take care, everybody, and see you then. Raise hell, and Christ is King.